Yes, sir.
And we are live. I'd like to welcome uh, everyone to Conversations with Brother Asar with the Madhu Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture. I have an esteemed panel here. We will be discussing today, we'll be discussing and critiquing the Kemet on trial debate headed by the House of Consciousness and what's the New Covenant. I think they teamed up for this debate, which was held in New York City on February the 8th, Sunday, February the 8th, 2015. And so the underlying issue of the whole debate, I guess, was supposed to be on issues of ancient Egyptian morality. And so we'll be discussing that, what had happened during the debate, and after the debate, post debate, what's our feelings, who won, who didn't win, things of that nature. So on our panel today, we have two of the participants in the debate. Brother Ankh with the Amara Squad, Brother Jonathan Owens, also the Amara Squad and the Magi group. We have Brother Garfield with us today, and we have another special guest, Brother Jordan, and everyone's going to give their opinion about what happened. And I'd just like to welcome you, brothers, to the panel discussion. Introduce yourself, say what's happening.
Hey, I just like to say what's happening to the Kings of New York. Y'all already know what it is. You know what I'm saying? Let's get that straight. You know what I'm saying? Went up there and took care of our business, but we need to. Sorry, you know it, man. We need to go ahead and get that final round in some kind of way, man. That rebuttal round. It kind of, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? We kind of got cheated on that, man. That's
Man, that was some heat, man.
Kind of got, you know what I'm saying, yo? So, but hey, man, we going to get that third round, and I don't know how we going to do it. We're going to get it in, yo. I promise you that, yo. That way we ain't got debate no more.
For those who are unfamiliar with what he's talking about, there was supposed to be a third round, either a third round or a third series of rebuttals or whatnot. And due to time constraints, because the event started 2 hours late, that round could not happen. And so this is what Brother Ankh is talking about. Brother Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yeah, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm here. No, you just asked, was I here? I'm here.
Oh, okay. Just introduce yourself to the two people who may not be familiar with you.
Okay, great. How y'all doing out there? In case y'all don't know, my name is Brother Jonathan. Professionally, I go by Casual of the Hieroglyphics crew. Doing my research, I'm referred to as Jonathan of the Amara Squad. Magi Misha, that's just the overseer of the Magi Army, or the squad, or however you want to call it. And, I was one of on the defense team at the debate Kemet on trial February
8th. All right. Brother Garfield, introduce yourself.
Hey, peace, Brother Garfield here, financial specialist and expert Facebook debater.
All right. Tell them about your Tell them about your show on Blog Talk.
Yeah, I'm Blog Talk. We just went into some serious stuff, man. When you have a show and Hank don't want to talk for the whole show, it's a great show. Because he was silent as a mother, boy, I tell you, for the whole show. But pretty much what it was, there's a no-doc program that's going on that the government has approved, and they're pushing it hard where, if you have a 700 score and no late for 24 months, you can get up to 200,000 depending on how high your trade lines are. So, it's a good program, man. I'm signing up tonight. I'm finishing up my application while you're talking. And I had a client that got approved for 150,000 today. A relative of mine, actually, Bantan Reed. Oh, my God. I hate to see people get all the money and I don't get it. So hey, I'm jumping on it tonight, man. And I gave it to the world today. Y'all do y'all thing. If y'all want to get involved, y'all know what the number is. Do y'all thing, you know. So that's what's going on with that, bro.
I sorry I missed your show. I decided to restart my computer, and it decided it wanted to do those Windows updates, and it took like 45 minutes for it to even to go through. So I'll catch the archive. But also on our panel, finally we have Brother Jordan. You can unmute your mic.
What's going on, guys?
Peace and blessings.
Oh, this is Peace and Black Power, y'all. This is the event ringing on my my phone right now. But I'm not a super scholar. I'm actually a former music industry major. I do sound engineering and studio engineering. So Smash, holla at me about them beats. But I could actually give Smash credit. If I was to share my screen here, probably be real proud of himself. I'm in a Mark Vegas dictionary right now because of y'all guys. So man, I'm not a super scholar. I'm really new to more of the sources of you guys' information. But the more debates I've been watching, the more I've been keeping up with the community, the more books I've been able to crack open for myself and start moving towards doing my own work. And I'm glad to be on the panel with y'all guys, man.
No problem, no problem.
Salute.
Our last and welcome and last minute entry, Brother Wujawu. We're just doing introductions. Introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, all that good stuff.
Okay. What's up, everyone? You know, I'm late. I just got in. My name is Wujawu, and I own planet Earth. And let me stop. Yeah, I'm an independent researcher, you know, focusing on Kemetic culture, traditions, and more currently focus on the language and trying to get more people into the language in order to have a window opening into the mind and the tradition and culture of Kemet itself. So that's pretty much where I'm at, you know, in brief.
Can I add something real quick before you go? Sorry, we should all share the link. I'm not in front of my computer, but if we all took time to share the link, we would get better viewing. That's all. I'm going to do it when I get in front of my computer as well.
Hey, y'all, I've shared the link, and so y'all, if y'all can, you know, continue. Before moving forward, I would like to get the opinion of not necessarily the participants at this moment, but just the people who was either there watching or watched via YouTube or something, or wherever it is that they stream from. What was your opinion? I want to start off with Brother Jordan.
My take on the debate. I started watching it on the Town Zone live stream, so one of my main takes is that live stream did not go as well as it could have went. But that's not my main complaint. I know a lot of people complained about that frequently, but that's not my main thing. What I took from the debate is mainly I know that the Hebrew Israelites would roll with the common claim, you know, that we depend on white scholarship, you know, for all of our information, and I just loved beyond everything that was being debunked and being done away with in the conscious community. I like how Divine Prospect came up and presented his info. Everybody saying Shaka didn't defend his book, although Shaka didn't defend the book verbatim, in my opinion, and I will buy the debate on DVD to see it more vividly. But even though he didn't defend his book verbatim, he definitely defended the stance that the book took, especially when he dropped that seal of Hezekiah with the 2 ankhs on it. Jonathan dropping that high science on the Kundalini, on the spinal science. I thought that was fly, showing how it moves from the bottom of the spine all the way to the crown of the head of the pharaoh. I thought it was just real fly how all of the claims was just being done away with like water. That was really my take on it, and I seen we really using sources out here. I think we'll eventually, maybe in another decade, we'll eventually inspire our brothers to read more than the Bible. maybe Divine Prospect will inspire him. But that's my take on the debate. It was just a flush of information from the Kemetic side.
All right, brother Garfield. Well, wait, I'll skip you for a moment. I'm gonna go to Brother Wajawu. Brother Wajawu.
Okay.
I know you were there, Brother Garfield. So I want to get you. You'll have a different take. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Wajawu.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't describe that as a debate. Number one, and I've been standing on a certain position from day one, so I'm not I haven't seen anything that makes me change my stance on the overall atmosphere and the whole vibe of that setting. I wouldn't call that a debate, but I'm not saying that to say that it's like negative or anything like that. I just wouldn't call that a debate just from my background, and I know how debates should run, how it should be moderated, and the questions asked, and the procedures about debating. But I do feel that at this particular event, that a lot more information was shared, and I think that the audience, which is probably the most important part, the viewers and the audience, I think they really walked away with some new information and a new way of looking at how to actually approach information, because the brothers on the Kemetic side, Amara Squad, Majai, definitely showed composure. It was more professional on that side than from the Hebrew side, and definitely a display of showing primary documentation.
Hey, Michelle, what's up?
So I think somebody else's mic is up. So yeah, I think it was very good. I think I think that it was a very good teaching session between the brother Polite.
How much you want to say you do it?
Let me mute his mic. His brother Garfield.
Oh, okay.
Let me call you back. Let me call you back.
Yeah.
Garfield trying to get his 200,000 K on the phone.
Yeah. That's.
But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, my take on it. I don't know how far you want me. I don't want to get long with it unless we want to, start picking different things apart. But overall, like I said, I wouldn't call it a debate, but the event, I think that a lot of people learned. They had the opportunity to learn some things. The unity was there, the energy, especially the emotions, the energy was there, and the overall vibe was definitely good. I think that in comparison, it was really clear that the Kemetic side had a lot more professionalism and a lot more scholarship than the Hebrew side, which was doing a lot of yelling and interrupting and things like that. And they were really reaching. You could tell that they were operating off of just assumptions, just a real hastily or rushed, opinions about different things. So. That's it. As far as who won that particular showdown, I think you had to be a fool to think that the Hebrews won. So,
all right.
That's
Brother Garfield, unmute your mic. What was your take?
Well, my take personally is that the whole thing, when I got there, first of all, I asked Divine Prospect, I said, is there any internet in the building? Because I had my iPad and I had my laptop with me. And plus I was on Google Hangouts on my phone. And so I'm trying to charge different things and get everything going and everything. But the thing was, I sat where GOCC was, all them people, I was sitting in the front row. So that's where I was. And I didn't realize that was the Hebrew side. So I had to move from the Hebrew side to go sit on I said, I ain't sitting here with a bunch of these people in these white outfits. I'm good. I'll go somewhere else. So anyway, that was one of the main problems with the whole debate, the time factor. Because a lot of people came in early and the place was almost pretty much full, and it was almost like 1:30 in the afternoon. So I had to sit there for 2 hours and watch GOCC running around trying to get their stuff together. So really, GOC, who was probably responsible for the internet, they caused a lot of problems, man. And then on top of it, their delivery and what they put out to us was garbage. I mean, you guys could be nice all you want. I'm not a part of the squad. I can't be political tonight. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling it like it is. I'm telling it straight up. Their information was garbage. Yes, they brought up some stuff about the books, and it wasn't even important anyway. But Shaka killed them. Shaka murked them. He murked them, period. He did something, as I said before, that nobody else has ever really done, is tying Kemet and Judah and Israel without the Bible. He did that very well. So as far as that section, Shaka took that. It wasn't even an argument. Then you had the intro with the guy that was reading the charges. It was just ridiculous, you know. But my whole thing is the whole rush thing with the debate. That kind of messed up the whole thing with the debate. The time factor. You know, I never got to see you, brother. I never got to see Sanjetti. I was mad. I ain't get to see Ant give his whole thing. I ain't get to see Jonathan do his entire thing. You know what I'm saying? So we kind of lost out. Divine Prospect sounded like a old cassette tape from the 80s when you press fast forward. That's how the brother sound. Come on, man. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I mean, thank God you guys came anyway. The Magi came in and did their thing and kind of cleaned up a lot of the mishaps and so forth. So, you know, thank God for Jonathan and Ang pointing out certain things. But I'm sure I would love to see you guys do a lecture. Like I told Nazi today, I said, I would love to see you guys just sit down and just, you know, make a presentation, and then you make a presentation, and then just do it that way instead of like more and less of a debate type of atmosphere, you know? That's more of like an educational, trying to teach people type of stuff. But pretty much, you know who won already. There's no doubt. And I guarantee you know who won? Whenever you hear somebody say that they want a rematch or they need to get more information out and complaining, you know they lost. And they are all over, Zion Lex didn't get to, I don't know, Zion Lex, I know him personally, I don't think he was going to bring nothing that was going to affect much change. But at the end of the day, if they're complaining about, I didn't do this, you know they kind of lost. They lost. That's the bottom line. But I wish everybody had got the opportunity to put out their information so we could all learn. You know what I'm saying? We could learn from each other. And that was the problem. The organization was just a bad factor. But that's about it.
Most definitely. I see Oba was in, but he left for a second. I'm pretty sure he'll chime back in. And so it looks like Brother Unk stepped away from his computer. So I'm going to go to Brother Jonathan.
I have some more commentary, but I wasn't trying to be long-winded.
No. I was just getting preliminary. At this point, I'm just getting preliminary, a feel for the debate. What was their overall, opinion of the debate? And then after that, after everyone has given that, then we're just going to get into the details of the debate. So, Brother Jonathan, if you're there as a participant, of the debate, as one of the main debaters, what was your overall opinion of what went down that night?
I don't know if I have a clear line because it was kind of breaking up when you were talking. Can y'all hear me clear?
I can hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just like you said, being one of the debaters, I guess I might have a different view, but I had my grandest intentions on coming into this debate humbly and hoping that they spent some of this time over the past year looking into some of the stuff that they brought forward. Obviously, I was shocked when I learned to find the parameters of the time frames or what have you. I thought we would have like an hour each to lay out our, whatever our cases were, but somehow it was different when we got there. And out of all of the slides I had prepared, even a lot of the claims that they had addressed, I felt it would be kind of most important to put out some of the stuff because their most damning stuff all pertain to misinterpretations of what that one term we brought forth, which was the aret, or that's just Egyptology speak, but it's like the aret, which they labeled as the anus, and so like we brought forth in the debate. It was very good to clear that up because that's like an umbrella over top of most of their claims when they come to this conclusion that it was some type of sexual deviance going on. And so now we can go back in detail and look over each one of those claims including their most damning one, which they thought was most damning, Pyramid Text 1036. But when we start to get into the knowledge of that, we'll see that everything we put forth at the debate applies. So as far as what I got to do, I felt kind of limited in my ability to speak and present, kind of rushed. But as far as what the Hebrews did, you know what I'm saying, I really expected more of them. I thought that they would have done a little bit more work, and I kind of feel like we was over-prepared for the debate.
Mm-hmm. All right. I still don't see Brother Unk. You know, I know he was dealing with his children in the back. But Brother Oba has stepped in. And so, Brother Oba, I know that you were watching via live stream. If you can hear us, and, you know, I'll unmute your mic. You know, give us your opinion on the debate.
Greetings, Hotep.
Hotep.
No disrespect to the brother Polite. I think a lot of people were expecting a whole lot more Amon Ra Squad Magi. I like the brother, but I wanted more learning. I wanted more facts, more studying. It seems like it was about 4 hours of theatrics before we got down to the meat. And I think a lot of people were disappointed simply because we felt like it was an Amon Ra Squad event, and it ended up being something else. Other than that, I believe that it was like a landslide win.
All right. My bad. My bad. Trying to adjust some things over here, but excuse me. Here we go. Got to get this pit bull out of the way. So I guess Brother Unk ain't coming through just yet, but I guess we can just round robin for now. I mean, I want to make a announcement to anybody who's watching. If you are watching via the Google Hangouts link, there should be a button at the top of or a link at the top of the screen or whatnot that says question and answer. If you have a question or a question for any one of the panel members, please type your question there. I'll be able to see it, and I will ask them directly for, you know, an answer to your question. So again, if you are watching directly from the Google Hangouts link, and it should be, regardless if you're directly on YouTube as well, it should say question. It should say Q&A. Next to the live button, and you hit that, and you can type in any question you would like, and it will show up on my end on this side. So so what would be your critiques? And this just goes to anybody, and anybody can chime in. What would be your critiques of the event itself and the information presented on both sides?
It just, because there was, I mean, I guess we've been saying it time and time again, because there was such a lack of scholarly perspective or perspectives on the Hebrew Israelite side and a lack of sources, it just made the Kemetic side seem so overly prepared for the event. It kind of almost made it like, you know, it was a setup. But I really don't know how to. It was just such a lack of information on one side of the event that it made it seem so one-sided. I guess the time discrepancy, as we all shared, a lot of things should have just been found out ahead of time.
Well, my critique of the actual mechanics of the event itself, I kind of echo what Brother Garfield was saying. And Brother Jonathan, as far as the time, that was definitely not enough time. When you're dealing with, it was supposed to have been a debate. When you're dealing with a debate with multiple topics or multiple quote unquote charges, there has to be a allotted amount of time to address it on both sides, and that just wasn't available. So at the end, it was rushed, and you can't learn. You can't learn anything. You can't. It's unfair to the audience and it's unfair to the participants to rush through their PowerPoint. You got people who are skipping PowerPoints, and you feel rushed, and it kind of throws off your whole presentation. So,
Exactly.
so I think that even with people's opinion as it is right now, there was still probably some information that the Hebrew Israelites could have presented, and they weren't able to just as well as the Kemetic side. So I think that was a big problem. So my critique is definitely on the whole mechanic, the event itself, the mechanics of the event. It wasn't done. It started late, and it just wasn't organized. To me, it was disorganized. And like I said, I'm used to what a real debate with moderation. So even if I take that away, it's still, to me, the event itself, for whatever we could call it, to me it wasn't organized. So that's my opinion.
We probably would have had an illusion of a more even running event, I think, and it's just my opinion. I think if they would have intro with Divine Prospect, as much info as he had, I think if they would have intro with him, we would have had the illusion of having a more even running event at least.
My whole thing is this, man, is that when the brother made the intro, I'm saying to myself that what is really the charges? Even in the case with Shaka, if this book was on trial, why would you bring up his lock first and then spend 10 more minutes in the second round talking about nothing to do with his book? And then
that was something
it threw me off because I'm there thinking.
Hold on 1 second. I hate to interrupt y'all, brother Ishmael Bey. If you are listening in the audience, I sent the link to you in your inbox on Facebook. For some reason, we aren't friends, so it may be in your spam box. So if you're listening, look into your spam box. I can't type to you directly, so I had to interrupt and say this publicly. There you go. All righty. I'm sorry. Continue. But before y'all go, introduce yourself, brother Ishmael.
Peace to the family. Definitely want to salute all of the family. All of you brothers did an excellent job, and just want to give greetings, peace, and greetings to everyone.
All right.
Peace.
Yes, brother. Yes.
Hotep.
Peace. I'm sorry I interrupted y'all, but go ahead. Whoever was talking last.
Yeah, I was saying that the whole thing with what's the agenda, because remember, people in the audience, we don't know what type of dealings or negotiations went on behind the scenes. I even had to ask Aunt today, was there a subject matter? I didn't know. I didn't get that feeling. I mean, and it's a shame. That's not even a biased statement, because when the brother came out and said that these are the charges, you got to say these are the charges, man, and say, listen, this is the charge, number 1, number 2, number 3. And then when you're making a case, I made a post today and everybody's mad about it, but if you go to a traffic court or to court period and somebody's a witness, you don't allow hearsay. The person got to come there and testify. So if you're going to put up glyphs, you got to put it up there, because Hebrews can't read glyphs. As a matter of fact, 99.9% of the people in there can't read glyphs. So you're going to say, oh, this says this. So whose word are you taking? So then you complain about white scholars, and then you use Herodotus, who don't even know who the hell a Jew or a Hebrew is. How you going to complain and then use scholarship that contradicts your whole being? He don't know who you are, and you're going to use him against Kemet. That don't make no sense. How a Hebrew going to use Herodotus and he don't know what a Hebrew is?
It's a very good point that you make, brother, and to make things even more complicated, it was like this. It was really an attempted setup of Amin Ra Squad as a whole, brother. What happened was they made an agreement that not only were we not able to see any of the charges as they were being given against us, they refused to allow us to use the internet in order to live time even defend ourselves. That's the equivalence of walking into a ring handcuffed and just letting somebody tee off on you. And we were so confident we would have everything covered, either on the live time or the books that we would bring, or be able to shoot access to information to one another, you know, they had the A side on this fight. If you was looking at how a Mayweather would fight, but now we on the A side, and they're going to be on the B side in any arena that we ever enter again. Well, we had to agree to everything. The other people had to deal with the promotional stuff, so it cut into our money of trying to help one another. You know, we had to come up with creative ways to even try to finance our own trip. So everybody was at an advantage as opposed to Amara Squad walking in there and not even given the equipment to defend ourselves against blind charges.
He's so right. I mean, he couldn't have said that. He said that like a great lawyer. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is when you see we out here, well, but let's just keep it 100 and let's just get to the meat and bones. I know everybody's seen that one video where Nazi made some condescending remarks or disparaging remarks about the Magi coming and doing this for small wages, or he said something to that regard, which is all really kind of like behind the scenes information. But he really we kind of made an agreement to all accept one thing across the board, the Hebrew side and that side, and he had some situation that sort of protruded what he needed or what have you, and so you know, it worked out for him. But yeah, he got in the public and used that like as if in a bad way. Well, anyway, speaking of what Brother Ish has done, I knew I could make that concession, one, because I knew we had that monetary concession that what I would receive, because one, I knew we could gain the support of the people, you know what I'm saying, and bringing forward monetary support and helping the Amara Squad get there. So most of what we seen actually was funded on the Magi Research Fund, you know what I'm saying, as far as putting forth on getting Brother Ankh there, putting forth on, you know, lodging room and board, and even a lot of the tools that help my presentation look a bit more state-of-the-art than theirs, all the way down to the Zulu Warrior security being there, as I put forward before, that was all something we would use this research fund to do. So in actuality, me knowing what Nazi wound up with and what we generated, I generated humbly 3 times more than what he had walked away with anyway, off the support of the people. So really, in knowing business and knowing what we're doing, that's not in the future, that's not a good move for any of us to make, to try to disclose things like that. And furthermore, all you're doing is showing your lack of business prowess and etiquette and everything else.
Can I add to that real quick?
But
go right ahead.
What I wanted to say, added to that, I know from your perspective, it would be, you know, the actual people involved in the debate, you know, exposing monetary information. From my perspective as an observer, I paid for the live stream, and when I seen it go up on YouTube, and, you know, it got around the time where I think Polite was asking for like $50 donations, so many people had so much to say. And I just want to say this to the YouTube family, or to the Watcher family, as a part of y'all, half of y'all waited until Sinetta threw the stream on YouTube to watch. Y'all didn't pay for the live stream. So for y'all to be complaining about business out there, y'all don't donate, y'all don't support, y'all don't do nothing, that's terrible. And that shows you don't support a dollar circulating in the black community, so that we can really get a sense of currency and political stature or status. It's backwards and a contradiction.
I can say something to their defense. Being at the event, and I mean, honestly, that happened. My wife purchased the stream, and same thing happened. It wound up on YouTube, but whatever. This is in the defense of the business, not to go too deep into what happened, but they had complications. They had complications with those feeds that people had paid for, and the only way that people who did pay could have witnessed the rest of the debate as a last minute troubleshooting. They had to find a way to get the stream to people who had paid for the event. So it was really the people who had paid for the event who received the email about the YouTube. And some of them were the ones who shared it with the public and made it open and free. It would have really still been only disclosed to those people who received it via email as a concession when the other streams fell off. So that's all I can say. I mean, as far as that's concerned, because I was just a participant in the debate, but I did get to witness some stuff that I could say in the brother Sinetta and Light's defense.
All right, hold on one second. We have a question from the question and answer app. This is from Samo Damo. He asked or she asked, was the time constraint known before or after the break period? I know it was stated the vendors needed the money, but 30 vendors versus time constraint. Being there, I don't think it had anything to do with the vendors. As we stated earlier, as Brother Jonathan just stated, there was technical difficulties on two fronts. One dealing with the live stream, and then one dealing with the projector to project the presentations. And because of those two things going on at the same time, the event was delayed up to 2 hours. But just because the event started 2 hours late, the venue itself, they could care less, and so we had to be out of there at a specific time, and so that's where all the rushing and stuff came as a result. So the technical difficulties as it regards the live streaming and the projector, I think they had to go off. Polite had to go off and get another projector because their projector wasn't working. And so that forced everyone to kind of rush through their information, and as a result, even though we had a little bit of time extended, it still wasn't enough for us to have that third and final round that we were supposed to have. Anybody else has any more information on that?
I think the what you probably left out was the whole Wi-Fi thing. That was major. The Wi-Fi thing, the fact that I believe whichever camp was responsible for the Wi-Fi, that was a problem, because if you don't have no internet, nothing can happen. And I think that's the Wi-Fi setting up. It took so long. That's really where the most of the time was being taken up. The Wi-Fi wasn't available. And if the Wi-Fi is not available, you can't do a live stream. You can't go on the internet. You can't do nothing. And a lot of people do their presentation from the internet too. I think Brother Jonathan needed the internet, and that's crazy. So without no internet,
crazy. Them guys didn't even want to agree to that.
But see, listen.
Yeah, because the internet now. See, the internet was there though. If the internet had started, because majority of the crowd, 90% of the crowd was there before 1:30. The crowd was there. I mean, people was outside from. I mean, it was crazy. So at the end of the day, the people was there early, and Polite made a speech saying, "You guys are here early, so we're gonna try to set up earlier so that we could start earlier." And it ended up that they started much later than when. So bear in mind, this is 1:30, and they were supposed to start, I think, 3:30, and they never started until like later on.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Was it supposed to start at 2 or
2:30? I think 2:30. I think
the door is supposed to open at 2. I don't remember.
I don't know. All I know, it was full.
But see, that kind of thing, to me, that's the kind of work that I've done professionally for years. Audio visual person, that was me, and just knowing what I know and doing what I do, or I used to do, that's something. Those type of things shouldn't happen, especially at an event like that, especially where people are paying, and that people are paying at the door, and people are paying online and things like that. That's something that you go through a dry run beforehand. You troubleshoot things, you check things out prior to, you go through a rehearsal. Even if you can't get inside the venue itself, or as far as the equipment itself, things should have been. Not knowing the players and who's responsible for what. So I'm not trying to dog anybody out, but I'm just saying overall, things like that should definitely have been handled a lot better, especially when it's involving taking funds, because people get angry. And we saw what happened. Things were rushed, and people would complain, and so on and so forth. So we gotta do better. I guess I'm saying, as far as that goes.
Black African Power family. Can I add something to that real fast?
Go ahead.
Hey, we've been waiting on you for 2 hours.
Brother Ish, what's good, brother?
Peace, brother. How you doing, King?
Hey, look, let me tell you something, man. The ancestors were strong. And let me tell you why. The Hebrews tried everything in their power. The internet wasn't there because the Hebrews didn't want the Kemetic side to have access to the internet. Right? That was first off, right? They was in charge of all that. Okay? So from the start, in their attempt, right, to stop our side from having access to the foolish ship they was going to bring, right, they banned the internet, forgetting that you need the internet, you know what I'm saying, to live stream. The most ridiculous thing ever. It was almost like Yahweh hardened their heart or something crazy like that. All right? So in their attempt, right, to cut the rounds, stop. And look, the timekeeper was a Hebrew Israelite. Cheating on the time, the last round, when they got their last chance and spoke and brought all them people for 25 minutes, and then the Vibe Prospect came in for another 15 minutes, we were supposed to have the same time. So at the end of the day, they did all they could do, right, and still lost that, right, because the information was too well put together and documented. The funny part is, the real documentation, only one person really got to put 75% of his presentation in, and that was Smash. I got to put 25% in. Asar ran off the damn mic, right, and Sinjetti never got a chance. Imagine how that would have went, right? Thank goodness for Shaka, he got a chance, but only Shaka used, be honest with you, he used Amara Squad material, Asar Hotep material, Sinjetti material, and some of his research. So we was always in the building at all times. But it was funny how they killed themselves. They just ran into each other, they made a mockery of themselves, and it was just crazy. I just wanted to make sure I say that. They had everything going in their favor. Power Ranger outfits, the whole 9 yards.
One thing particularly that was sad about it to me was the fact that they went through all of that hell just to show that, for instance, they got good, you know what I'm saying, scholarly, you know, some scholarly good, some good scholarly habits, but then they turn around and throw it in the trash. Like when Awana Sapp went up there and defined, you know, what the lock meant. Mind you, Shaka already went through on a live stream. He said, you know, that my lock means it's a sign of youth. For him to go up there and say that and be like, so you a child tonight. You know, it's like you turned around and turned that information into a joke. And the whole point of having this platform and this forum so we could bring some decorum and some respect and some higher respect level to our scholarship. So for him to do that, it's like you taking this for granted, man.
Yeah, the first sign.
That was something consistently that was
first sign.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I was just saying that the first sign that you have lost the debate is when you default to ad hominem. And so for them to start off the debate with ad hominem attacks let you know from the gate that they were losing, and it didn't even start yet. And so, you know, as he said, the spirit of the ancestors was there. But before I let anybody else speak, I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak. So we have one drop. I think this is Brother Kufu. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What's good, Asar?
Peace, peace. What was your take about the event?
The event, it was very entertaining. I might say so myself. I was very entertained. It wasn't boring and drawn out, and you know, I was very entertained. You know, as far as scholarship, I could say the only scholarship that I did get from the Hebrews was that goddamn condom.
Oh shit! Oh, snap.
Where they got that from?
I don't understand what the whole point was. All you did was prove that the ancient Egyptians even invented condoms. So you added more evidence to the primacy of ancient Egypt.
They was making stupid
I was just about to touch on that same exact topic. I'll let the one drop continue, but I was just about to deal exactly with that topic right there.
Go ahead, Brother Ish.
Yeah, go ahead, Ish. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam, family. I was just going to touch on it that unfortunately they walked in with this Beavis and Butthead kind of mockery kind of vibe about them, and they missed out on giving such partial information. Like for instance with the condom situation. There was nothing offensive about condoms being in Egypt. That's not even offensive. But they, you know, the use of condoms in Egypt were for multiple reasons. One was for disease. Another one was for customary and costume-like reasons. Another one was for actual protection from the sun, from either sunburn or from sand. There were multiple reasons that they even had condoms at the time. And even the condom of itself was not offensive. But yet they painted it as if, see, they was protecting themselves from dirty diseases and anal sex, and they took it somewhere completely left, being on this whole just an entirely different vibe. Nothing academic about it at all. So even the truth of what they were putting up there was only a partial truth that they kept on harping on over and over again on various different topics. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Just again, for those who are listening, if you are watching live and you are either watching from the Google Hangouts link or from YouTube, there should be a little icon towards the top of the screen that says Q&A. If you have a question for anyone who is on the panel, please hit that app button and ask your question. It will show up on my right side on the control panel, and I will ask on your behalf your question. But I'm sorry, who was about to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something that backing up a little bit. I think the entire event, like I said, I don't call it a debate, and I don't call it a debate for the very reasons that everybody is mentioning on the panel. That really, I think that the Amon-Ra squad, Majai, and the Kemetic side, period, did the Hebrew Israelites a favor and gave them a barakat, a blessing to really allow them the platform to attempt to stay relevant in 2015, because obviously they didn't come to offer any scholarship. They came with the ad hominems. They came with an improper debating procedure and method. They like you all were saying, they didn't even want to present the so-called charges at first or ever. I don't even know if y'all ever got the charges. And then on top of that, they tried to ban the ability to rebut as far as the internet goes and stuff. So it was a setup from the beginning. The scholarship was poor. So really, the Kemetic side did them a favor to even address them, to even give them some attention. So that's my overview. That really they should be thankful. They should really be thankful that we're even talking about them right now, still in 2015. Because the Super Bowl was about a week ago, and once the Super Bowl's over, about a week after that, everybody stops talking about it. So usually after this took place, maybe people stop talking about the Hebrew Israelites, because y'all really did them a favor.
Yeah. Now I want to get y'all opinion about this. Now this is a critique on both sides that I observed, watching the event, and that is at two moments, two presenters, in my opinion, I think offended the audience. The first time was Brother Shaka, when he was talking about none of y'all in here are anthropologists, none of y'all here are insulting the audience. First, I believe that you don't know everyone who's in the audience and what their educational background is to even make that statement. But then the second one was Brother, what's his name, Hashar, when he was basically calling the audience a fool for, I guess, giving props and deference to the Kemetic side for, I think this was shortly after Polite did the dramatic trip to Egypt video or whatnot to this nature. But, what did y'all catch that, and what is your opinion?
Let me say something to that and to a few other things in that regard. Being a performer, and having a stage presence and all that, I know a few things that I've seen exploited. If you notice, I never turn my back on the crowd. Why would I do that? I've been rocking mics for years. I'm not going to turn around and be staring at. I'm just going to read it off my computer, stay squared up with the crowd. It's part of engaging people. Furthermore, you spoke to not putting nobody on your side against you, but yet knowing, me personally being witty and knowing how to walk that fine line is half the reason why I put forth that little small introductory presentation about incest in the Bible, because I wasn't using it to use it against them. I was using them to rile them up against the abomination, and then to say ultimately, but y'all wasn't with that, right? So I secretly was endearing some Hebrews to my argument, you know what I'm saying? But speaking directly to the things like condescending on the crowd and just having the assumption that you can either punk the crowd or you can do any of those type of things. Those are good ways to wind up getting booed, whether they boo you out loud or not. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how I feel.
Yeah. Me personally. Oh, go ahead, brother.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, well, me personally, I thought, like what you said with Shaka, I was wondering if I was the only one actually who had caught that. I'm like, why did he feel the necessity, especially with the information that he brought, why did he feel the necessity to say that no one in the crowd was anthropologists or this, that, and the third? They're coming to learn from you. So I mean, that being said alone, of course they may not be the anthropologists from which you get your sources, or the history people or the curators, whoever it may be. Of course they may not be these people. They've come to learn from you. So I thought that was unnecessary. I thought that was very unnecessary. The way Hashar stood like where the projector was projecting and was just like, ask them ends about disease, and I thought that was crazy. It was a lot of, you know, coonery, I guess, as we would commonly call it, going on. A lot of unnecessary stuff, like for him to even say that, you know, and just to back it up a little bit, like, I think what happened too, the mistake was made by the Hebrew Israelites that they thought they was debating a bunch of sensationalists. And the reason why I say that is because if you notice the premise, like even before the debate, the premise of a lot of their arguments would be, so if Egypt was so great, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Well, if you don't have disease, we don't have, you know, medicine. You know, point blank period. You don't have doctors. You know, if you don't have people breaking the laws, then you don't have lawyers. You don't have society without negative and positive. It's not just positive in a society. And I think because they thought they was debating sensationalists, it turned a lot of stuff, you know, just it wasn't all that great. Things could have been a little more classy, you know what I'm saying? And like you said, the offending of the crowd didn't have to happen. People being made to feel like they're fools after they paid to come see you, they just put money in your pocket. You call them a fool? Come on.
Can I say something right quick?
Go ahead, Brother Over.
I think dealing with New York City, that's typical. That's the way Israelites talk to anybody when they're standing on the street corner, and they got that's normal. And Shaka is from Harlem, and I think Shaka is trying to step it up, beef it up a little bit. So he's pretty much doing what he sees everybody else does. Because Sarnetta would turn around and talk crap to the crowd too. So I think that's pretty much New York City. I'm gonna talk how I talk. You know, that's what we see from that. My opinion.
And also further that, I think a lot of what we do within this community itself is on the job training. There were some of the things that I was trying to impart to Brother Tahuti of mistakes that he was making with Brother Dr. Wesley for when he had to face up with Brother Dr. Ali Muhammad. You know, so when he had come to me about some of the things to do, I was just trying to give him some tips from formal, you know, debate or public speaking, and the things that he was applying. I think it was a better presentation of the information that he wanted to share with the people. So a lot of times pressure busts pipes. So when we're nervous, we get hype, you know, and we express that in different ways. And that's what you see sometimes in these debate forums. A lot of times when you have a whole room full of people react differently. And Jonathan's the MC. He understands the whole vibe of how to read the crowd, the things to do and the things not to do. But in our community overall, it's on-the-job training. I'm positive that a brother as bright as Shaka will look at himself and then correct certain things that he could say, man, I could have did that better, because that's what Tahuti had to do. I could have did this better. I didn't deliver that right. Help me with this or help me with that. As I'm a Raw Squad as a whole, if I'm lacking something, I can go to and study what I saw Imhotep is writing to say, let me get better on my writing on this. Or I can go to Ankh to say, how should I approach this? Or Jonathan, how should I approach that? We are a built-in self-mechanism of training and elevating one another. Other people don't have that environment and that culture to pull for one another consistently. So they're pulling from themselves, looking at themselves. I can see the difference of how Sarnetta himself gives the information than he used 2 years ago. So it's really just on-the-job training, and sometimes when people are under pressure, they react a certain way.
That's a real statement.
Now, when I had a more recent discussion with Brother Israel Doctrine, you know, one of the things, and also on the Talk with the Titans forum, one of the things that I mentioned was that, you know, we have to understand that a lot of people, the vast majority of the people who are involved in these big debates, in terms of the Sarnetta platform, are not individuals who went through college to get their information. They're individuals who came directly not gonna say directly off the streets, but some came directly off the streets in the case of like Polite and, you know, others like that. And then some may have not necessarily come off the streets, but, you know, they didn't go to school for this type of information and are not scholars in their field. And so, you know, it's a difference in the way that they present and the way they feel they have to present, because they're coming from an environment where that's how you relay information. And I said that this always hurts. This is what gives the impression, of course, that these debates are fundamentally worthless, as I hear some other people articulate. And because they don't know the decorum that it's supposed to have, you know, in a debate, or what the rules are. This is why the Hebrew Israelites, you know, didn't know about the charges and all this other kind of stuff, because none of them have come directly from, I ain't gonna say none of them, the vast majority of them have not come directly from a scholastic background. And so, you know, when you're trying to articulate, you know, protocol, methodology, epistemology, things of this nature to a lot of these individuals coming from that camp, then, you know, it seems foreign to them. And the only thing that they can relay to you is, or their only defense is, well, that's the white man stuff. And we saw that, you know, time and time again throughout the debate, you know, in terms of the quote-unquote white sources, as people would say. And so I'm seeing here quickly, brother, I assume Lion Blyden says arrows up, and this is in the Q&A app. Arrows up, great event, clear win. ... Asar versus Divine. That would be an interesting and scholarly debate.
Oh man, can I add something? Can I say something real fast, please?
Go ahead.
This is what I'm not appreciating, right? You had people going to Egypt. You had people contacting authors of books that made claims off of misinformation, getting email correspondence with actual scholars in the field. You got you just got people with hours of research and chronology. You got a research team, man. You got scholarly academic. You got street scholar. You know, that's what I call myself. Ain't had no formal training, right? But learned from the peers around me. You had just hours and hours and hours of work. You know what I'm saying? And just for them to think that they was going to be able to just run through that building like that with that foolery, you know what I'm saying? It's insulting. And for the record, Divine is not a scholar. You wouldn't even put him up against Asar. Asar ain't built for Divine. I'll smack Divine around. Divine ain't built for Ishmael Law. Divine ain't built for Sinjetti. Divine ain't built for Smash Rockwell. You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to beat him up. See, this is what they're not understanding. The squad that we got is really designed to deal with white academia. I've been saying this 100 times. It wasn't designed to smack around a group of people who just believe in a book. That wasn't the reason for the development of the squad. It might have started with me cussing people out, right?
Smash did catch him flipping on that glyph broad daylight. I was like, golly. But Divine couldn't get that glyph together. I said, oh, God. The meta at the university ain't helping you too good right now. Oh God! He said, "Oh,
That
you
was
don't
a
know how to
basic.
read this one."
That
He
was
was
a
like, "You don't know how to."
basic glyph. That was like that wasn't even like one of the hard rare glyphs. Like these were basic. You should
Now,
get this on the first page of any book glyphs.
Right.
more
Thank you.
specifically, that was part of the basic alphabet that you learn. That's like something that my daughters draw on a regular basis.
Yeah, my daughters right. Yeah, my daughters know that name and measure that too. At least Savannah, one of my daughters do.
Yeah.
See, that's my point. And so for the divine to think that he could step up, right, and do any look, check this out, man. I don't mean no harm. I had peace in my heart, and I said, "Go ahead, divine," because really it wasn't even divine turn. Think about that now. Divine was like, "Oh man," he was pouting and he was shutting his laptop down. I said, "Go ahead, bro." I said, because if you don't present it, you know what I'm saying, they already did in the water, but at least let them hear an attempt at some type of foolishship. It was still foolishship now, but at least it was directed in a way where it kind of sounded like it could have been academia. So I said, "Go ahead, divine." You know what I'm saying? Think about that now. Divine is crazy. To actually think that they can read Meta Nature in a month. Okay? Like I seen y'all get down. See, and this is what, there's so much information we never got a chance to talk about. Like, if you're going to deal with a translation team, the key element in the translation team is understand the indigenous cultures, right, in that area, and understand the indigenous culture of what you're trying or who you're trying to translate. This is paramount in understanding translation. That's why the European has always failed in their translations at the end of the day, because they're not tied to the living tradition and they're not tied to the actual culture. They do not understand. No Jewish person will try to attempt to translate anything, right? Their translating team is fluent in understanding Jewish or Hebrew culture. That's a must. Okay, so for a Hebrew guy who never even studied African culture to just jump out of nowhere and translate, it's buffoonery. And it's really disrespect to the work that the brothers and sisters on the squad actually put in. I just want to put that out there.
I definitely have to back you up on that, brother Ankh, because you are absolutely right. When you and I put the squad together, it was not it was built it was built for a whole different purpose. You know, if somebody else was taking our community astray, we were going directly to the Church Ward family and calling them out and making them denounce their own writings. You know, if it was Scientology, we was going directly at the source. We was going directly for the white people. And the same thing, there was a whole, you know, people were ignoring Egyptian history from a West African perspective. You have to find somebody who's dedicated to West African linguistics that's totally ignored in other parts of academia in order to change that. Those are the people that we bring onto the squad. The value of what Brother Jonathan and what Brother Sinjetti and Ngozi, all of them, the value of what they bring is something that's unique, but it's built for a whole different person than the people that are trying to step up, saying that they want to try to battle the squad. That's why we were so reluctant to even include ourselves into that little puny shit. That's really a waste of time. But if you really want to shut down, then you know who to call. Other than that, we are really built for an entirely different arena.
All right,
hey, can I say something real quick? It's Brother Garfield. I want to.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. And then I got a question.
As the official driver of the Amin Ra squad. That's my job. I think I'm able, like Frank Lucas, I was able to gain some knowledge this weekend. I think I know a little marionetta. But let me say this about Divine Prospect. If you say that Noah's grave and the Patriots' graves are real, I think he disqualified himself scholastically from any form of debate. You cannot say Noah has a grave and he has 5 graves and say this is real. It's there. It's there. Look. You can't do that. And if you allow yourself to do that, you're going to set the Hebrew Israelites 20 years back and probably even 40 years back. Because right now, I'm not going to lie though, he does have the potential to put stuff out that's beneficial. But when you start saying that the graves are real and that they're there to try to cut us off because you know what it is? Angst the fault. It's angst. Angst the problem. They watch too much. They always try to counteract Ang and say, hey, I'm going to get him. And then they make a fool of themselves. Because if it wasn't for Ang, he wouldn't have made that whole presentation about the dead bodies. Where's the bodies at? That's the first thing Ang always say on Hebrew War Machine. Where y'all bodies at? Where y'all bones at? Where y'all libraries at? So they took it to heart. It's Ang.
Where your manuscripts?
As the driver of the Amin Ra squad officially on the East Coast, I am saying.
All right. We have a question in the question and answer app. This is coming from Samo Damo again. He asked, or she asked, I'm not sure if the gender, but for the Kemetic community as a whole, for all the students of the knowledge who have gotten a spark or a confirmation we are on the right track, are there more collective efforts in the minds to further feed the movement? And he addresses this, I guess, to the whole panel, but I'm not sure exactly what that last part means. So if you can, retype it and put it in, we'll try to address it now. It's going to be a slight time delay by the time I say this and by the time you hear it, but, type it in anyway. I'm trying to get some more clarity on exactly what you mean in that latter part. But if y'all could, if y'all think y'all understand the question, somebody can go ahead.
Repeat it.
Okay.
I wanted to say something kind of trail what Brother Ish and Uncle Ket was saying. One of the good things about this event and what I've observed on Facebook after the event is that I really think that people see a clear distinction between the two different so-called sides, the two different camps, and I think people really appreciate the professionalism and the scholarship of the Kemetic side, Amara Squad, etc. And I think it provides an opening for people to really be interested in learning Medu Neter and learning the language and learning the actual traditions and customs of Kemet. So it kind of goes with the brother's question. I think the event has opened the door. It allowed people to see that, hey, we do have some brothers and people that do understand, that do and have the confidence to deliver it, and so on and so forth. So I think this is an opportunity for all of us to start teaching. That's why on Facebook I've been posting all day. Let's educate and teach now, because I think the more people are open to it right now.
I can most definitely say, Brother Wujal, and also what Brother Jonathan did, and your ability, Brother Wujal. When Brother Jonathan stood before them and said, "Challenge me," that was a very, very defining moment. Yeah, I'm talking about it sent shockwaves through the people that were online. The message board started to blow up. It was really a very defining moment of confidence. Of look, going in, it is what it is. Give me your best shot, because I'm gonna return fire.
Yeah.
So it was a very defining moment of somebody being dedicated in their studies, and even us just showing up as a team in any form. I'm telling you, it took a lot of boldness for somebody to agree not to have any internet, blind charges being lobbed against you nonstop for 3, 4, possibly 5 hours straight, and for the brothers to show up in New York City and just as a squad and as a team, whether it's coming from Brother Polite, whether it's coming from Brother Shaka, Amir Ra Squad, it took a lot of nerve to sit there and do that, to say, I'm confident in my ability, give me your best shot, because you're going to be defeated today.
And them boys got the floodgates opened up on them.
Yeah, that was a tsunami ass whooping right there.
Hold on. Just to that. Here's a question just for that. A brother Nahisi, Jadefre, asked the question, do the Amara squad feel it was an overkill for preparation and the Hebrews were underprepared? So basically, was the Amara squad overprepared and the Hebrew Israelites underprepared?
Let me get that first. We came in the spirit Theophile Banger and she ganked the D-Ops. Let's get this straight, right? let me rewind for a minute, right? Here's the truth. The only person that was actually, when the squad started, me and Ish was looking at each other saying, you know what? We're tired of building other people's shit and people kicking us off their shit after we built their shit. You remember that, right, Ish? Excuse my language, right? And so we developed the name Amara Squad, and it was just one person that we invited, and that was Brother Sanjetti. And the only reason Brother Sanjetti was invited because I was talking bleep, bleep, bleep one day on the radio, and I made a mistake linguistically. And this brother dug in my ass. I promise you. And I was like, whoa. For the first time, somebody had got me, and I had to concede. And if you can't beat him, you better join him. Next person up, right, was Brother Saul. He come in, I'm talking, and he frees me. I'm like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? So the only way to really get on the squad is by fire and testing information. Then you get John for Smash Rock. Now, John has been calling the show since the Nicky Love updates. And one day he just decided to open his mic and start going in. It was no way the brothers and sisters that came on the squad, they couldn't be denied. They forged their way in. It's not we're going to pick you. The only people that we tried to pick was the young brothers, right? And the young brothers always fall to the damn wayside. And I don't know why. I don't know why they do that. I do not know why. Because they're not necessarily ready for the level of information. That their maturity level for the information, they just can't handle it, right? But I'm telling you this, right? The only way to get on the squad is to forge your way in. You know what I'm saying? And it's very, very interesting, man. But was we prepared? Come on, man. Just that homework we've been doing. And you want to know why? They was wondering, why is Brother Unk so confident? Because I had seen everybody's homework. I seen the vigor. I seen the study. Over-prepared, we was making sure that we had represented Kemet for real. And be honest with you, we didn't get a chance to do that. I promise you this. No one seen Brother Asar's work. No one seen Brother Sanjetti's work. And they only seen 25% of my work. And they only seen 75% of Smash Rockwell's work. And they didn't even hear from Ishmael Law. Didn't hear Ngozi. So, be honest with you, dog, check this out, man. Being prepared is a goddamn understatement. We was born for this moment right here. And I promise you that. If y'all think that was something, y'all ain't seen nothing yet, bruh. Next time we put on the damn event, the live stream gonna be crystal clear. The information, we're gonna take you back to the days of Dr. Ben, Shiganti Diaz, Theophile Banger. All those guys that the pseudoisms, right, had kind of swept their work to the side. And I ain't gonna start naming the super pseudos amongst us. I ain't gonna do them elders like that. But I promise you, yo, we have brought the wise old elders back.
I really do wish that we would have an opportunity to be, you know, to go to Oxford or somewhere. I really and truly do. I think people will really understand the level of what we're talking about when you line up a nice table full of victims and in a proper setting allow us to feast all day. I really think that then they will start to get the point of exactly what we're built for.
All right, hold on real quick. Along those lines, brother, and he confirmed that he's a male. So, brother Samo Damo reworded his question, and he said basically, for a student to see all you scholars together was powerful. Can we see all of you guys in a large venue teaching, therefore for hours?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was. That's what I was alluding to. You know, and that's another thing. I wish whoever's responsible for the video footage of the event, I really wish it would hurry up and get out, because I mean being made public, because I think that it would be really, really good to look at the video and then address everything, and then whatever was cut short as far as time constraints, then there'll be an opportunity to really address it and actually teach the people. And that's what I meant earlier. I think a lot of people are wide open, and they're hungry. They're hungry for the
Hold on one second. Let me Brother Garfield.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying. I think that on my observation, a lot of people are hungry and thirsty for the information now. A lot of people who were skeptical and they were sitting on the sidelines trying to see, if the Amara squad could hold up to it, and because you have a lot of propaganda prior to the event, so some people were just wanted to see what the outcome was going to be. But overall, I think a lot of people are hungry for the information. So once the video footage is released or made public, then address everything point by point and give a presentation, or maybe do something to address it, whether in writing or video presentation, where everybody can really get it off. Where Uncle Keck, you can present all the information, Jonathan, present all the information in a smooth fashion. Osar Motep, Sanjetti, everybody. I think that would be monumental, and I think that's what the people need. I think that's what.
What's that? Somebody else was about to say something.
I know that it's an advantage as far as for Armored Raw Squad as a whole, for us to be able to put our seal on an actual event. It's going to be something that I think that our supporters are used to. I think they're used to being able to find a good body of knowledge when they go on Facebook and understand that it's not going to be a whole bunch of spam up there, that we try to, keep the bullshit down to a minimum as far as the information being fed to the people when they call into the show. We like to keep it lively because, knowledge can be boring as hell. So we do try to keep it lively, and express it the way that we do. But we also try to make sure you get a good body of knowledge and information. I think for us, we're already focusing on getting our own media team tight. The promotions. I think y'all really like the animations and the creativity that we're all trying to express and give to you. The books that are coming out, the shows that you get, the guests that we have coming in. I think y'all worthy. Y'all queens and kings. So we try to treat y'all like that. But for y'all to come to a venue that we want to offer, we want to make sure y'all getting good pay-per-view, that it comes with a package that's going to have a DVD already being sent out to you. After the event is already there, you're getting a nice quality DVD being mailed to your home so that you're getting a couple. Yeah, it's going to be like $30 instead of the $20, but you're going to get a nice quality live feed as well as a nice DVD being sent directly to you for your studies. For me personally, I like to hand out footnotes to the crowd while I'm speaking, so that you can read along with me, so that you can go home with these footnotes in your hand.
Yeah.
So that's the way that we like to do our thing. We're the A side, and that's what y'all worthy of, and that's what we're trying to deliver to you.
Yeah.
Hold on, real quick. Hold on. Speaking on, brother. No, you made me forget his name real quick, brother Jonathan. You were to release a book, or have released a book. Can you tell us about it in terms of in association with the debate?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, a lot of the information first that I've been dying to talk about was scheduled to be put forth in my book Magi, a handbook for the conscious community, February 8th. Right now, I actually do have a link to a format that I don't want to distribute it in, but I've been dealing with, and just to put forward, if anybody else trying to do self-publishing, I tell them not to use Blurb, because I've been having, it's very problematic. They like corrupting my book, and so I'm working with their customer support to bring things back. But at least it's preserved in the ebook format right now. But I don't want to do that just because of their complications. I don't want that book to be available digitally, and so I'm getting things fixed up right now to get it out to people ASAP. But yes, ma'am.
Hey, I'm gonna message you on that, because I'm in the middle of publishing the book too. So I'm hooked up with somebody else. Maybe we could work something out.
Definitely. Actually, yeah, we'll talk about that. But Asar already took care of me, actually, and the people you recommended, Asar, they said they could have me done almost by the end of the week, so I ain't even really tripping, and I appreciate that. But but like I said, Magi, the brunt of the work, a lot of it is public and free anyway, but the majority of it is this new information I brought forth in the last year, or I'm attempting to bring forth in the last year, pertaining to a lot of the sexual claims of sexual deviance in Kemet. And it took me reading all of the source material of the majority of the people who put forth these claims, and it let me learn a lot of new information, basically, pertaining to how these things came into fruition, how these claims came into fruition. And now we can even pinpoint the place where some European rights took this information and misconstrued it and went off into their own little sexual deviances, thinking that they had the science, but they had it wrong because they had the area of the body right, but you know what I'm saying? They was thinking about something else. And so they developed all kind of things that was real pseudo and get cast back on Egyptology, but I mean on Kemetology or on Kemet. But now we get to actually clearing up a lot of those things. And like I said, whenever they're ready to deal with their most damning text, it was brought forward, which is pyramid text, 1036. I deal with it in the book. But it was really what we would have learned at the debate is that this is one of 2,000 new pyramid texts that was brought forward in 1977 by the French School of Egyptology by a man named Jean Leconte, or whatever. And what he did, yeah, exactly. And what he did was Lecline or whatever. I'm not, you know. But what he did was opened up a new chamber in Pepi the First pyramid and found 2,000 new texts. So anyone, first, if you don't have this work, if you got any of the prior pyramid texts, you don't even have access to this, to a primary of it or any accounts of it, because it's not in Kurt Self's work and it's not in a lot of other people's work. When we scrutinize what he put forward about the text that they thought was homosexual, he even had the underlying premise correct, but he did not know how to translate it in the way that that I brought forth in my book, and it's basically about the procreative powers. And I got all the other scholars saying they know that it's about that, but they don't see why it's relayed in the way that they thought it was relayed. And so he said it was a disorder in pyramid text 1036, which would cause Heru and Sutek to have these certain relations. But now that we know what these key terms are, it's actually Sutek being able to bring forth the or to use or to be able to bring forth the offspring of Heru, and vice versa. Heru would in this confusion would be able to bring forth the offspring of Sutek by their creative powers being switched. So in their lame interpretation, which says something like the phallus of the mutut of Sutek, or the seed of Sutek travels to the aret of Heru, they thought that was the semen of Sutek traveling to the anus of Heru. Excuse my language. This is just how they got it in all their interpretations. You see what I'm saying? And so when we look at it the way that we can see now clearly that the procreative powers are the seed attached to the aret, which we know actually is also the area in the Kundalini, the root chakra is your. We talked all about it at debate, all about the semen emissions and everything else, so I don't think I have to reiterate that. But yeah, that's all contained in the book, and it's my latest research.
Yeah, and yeah, you see that. I mean, a couple brothers that was at the debate, man, what they said was, after your explanation, it was almost like you was talking to a bunch of second graders that had challenged a person with a doctorate degree. You feel me? And I think the crowning moment for me at the debate was when my main teacher, James Smalls, right, came up to me and said, boy, y'all some bad motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of like, that's the crowning moment for me. You know, when Dr. Kaba, you know what I'm saying? When he was like, man, I learned something. He was like, wow. He said it kind of like confirmed some things for him, right? And so the fact that, y'all know it, man, we stand on the shoulders of the elders, man. You know, we do this for them. And one of the elders that is just my main teacher of just how to speak, how to put words together, how to always stay African, how to understand everything is interrelated. Just, man, I'm like a small James Smalls, but just to hear him say that, man, that was for me, man, that just made me want to just, I mean, come on, man. I mean, seriously, man, that was the moment, man. And I just want to right now, I want to really give the shout out, man, to Smash Rockwell's, man, because it was on his research, yo. You know what I'm saying? It was on his back, man. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, man, I was able to be confident because of that research he did. You know what I'm saying? I was also able to be confident because of what Sinjetti had. And I was certainly confident because of what Assad had. You know what I'm saying? And it was hard for me to be, how you want to say it? Don't be too boisterous or don't be too.
We lost you,
I don't know. Somebody's trying to call me on Google Hangouts.
That's Yahweh, man. That's Yahweh.
There is
that was Yahweh. You get too cocky. You got to slow down, Speedy.
That's Yahweh. Oh my goodness.
Hey, well, you know what though? Honestly though, we Magi archers. Even to represent the Magi, you know how to read Medu Neter. So whether you even this organization is an unorganized organization, and whether you consider yourself Magi or not, if you out here shooting them down whenever they saying something about the Medu Neter, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Now, when it comes to my information, you see who I most commonly bump heads with are people at the top of this field, period. You know what I'm saying? We get in the public and we put it out there and we bang it up. And bumping heads with brothers like Ujahu and my brother Asar put my scholarship on the level, and it let me know. I learned almost everything I know about methodology by debating Asar for the last 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Starting in 2010. Go back and look at our pages. You know what I'm saying? You'll find every 3 years we have a really long debate where he always ease his way out by scrutinizing my methodology. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, next 3 years, I'm going to come back with some more methodology. But so it is all one thing, like I said, and I give credit to the people and everybody, all of us who trying to get this, keep each other on our toes, you know what I'm saying?
Now, people got to keep in mind, like for me, you know, like again, I was a Hebrew Israelite. And so, you know, I tell people this, that I was in the ICUPK, and they look at me funny, like, you're lying. I'm like, no, I'm not lying. Like, when I came into college, I seriously, when I was in my history classes or sociology classes, I would write papers and debate the teacher that the black people were Hebrew Israelites and would break down the 12 tribes chart in class and do stuff like this. And, of course, you know, they would ask me fundamental questions that I didn't have a ready answer for, so I would have to go back, get some lessons, then try to come back and try to make an argument, and it would get shot down. And so, you know, enough of this makes you, you know, cognizant of, you know, your approach to studies is much more important than the knowledge that you have, you know, or the knowledge that you think you have. You know, this is why I was introduced to epistemology. You know, a few years later, still in undergrad, my professor of Africana Studies, he, you know, I had a question on the meaning of the word Kemet, and I had a you know, a hypothesis for, you know, this ongoing debate between, you know, Sheikh Anta Diop, Theophilo Obenga, and the Eurocentric school. And so he said, well, you have a lot of good ideas, but it needs to be refined. This is what I'm going to do. No, he said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to write a paper, and you're going to present this paper at the African American Studies Symposium that's going to be held here this year at the University of Houston. This was in 2003. And so at this symposium is nothing but PhDs or people working on PhDs. So I'm still working on the first degree, so to speak. And so I have no real training in this, you know, to actually present at a conference this information. And so, you know, I'm studying, trying to, you know, make myself seem as academic as possible because I don't want to look like an A, you know, in front of, you know, all these professors. And so, you know, I wrote the paper, I presented it, got some feedback, you know, and so this is where there's like, you need to learn Medu Neter. You know, you need to get this book, and this book. You need to go to this museum. They started giving me numbers of people I needed to contact. You know, that's where I first met Dr. Mario Beatty. He's like, oh, you need to holler at Dr. Theophilo Obenga. Here's his number. Start calling Theophilo Obenga. He was still at San Francisco State University, you know, getting information and lessons from him, you know, although it was brief. I can't say that I really studied under him, but he was sending me in directions that I needed to go. And so, you know, and shortly after that, I was dealing with Professor Manu M. Pym and all of this, and learning about the firsthand primary research. So when I come to people with this information, like what's your primaries, the method that you use, da da da, it's because I have this long history of dealing with these type of individuals who would challenge me along those same lines. And so, it's totally different from when I was in the Hebrew Israelites, where if it sounded good, we rolled with it. And as I can see in 2015, no different from 1998 and 1999, the Hebrew Israelites are still, for the most part, running along that same lack of methodology path.
Can I add to that?
I'm sorry?
I was wondering if I could add to that real quick. I know you say they pick a role with what sounds good. To add to that, I noticed, their scholarship, they put their scholarship on a demerited level to me when they pick and choose, which things are precepts or which things are metaphysical precepts and which things are actual events in history. They pick and choose, you know what I'm saying, amongst different camps, different times. One time something actually happened, the next time it means something in heaven with Yahweh Shai. So, I mean, that's something I observe as well.
But that's a reason. The reason is because it's not really their culture, and so each culture has mechanisms and devices socially and contextually that'll let you know exactly what is or what is not. And so this is what I mean by the importance of methodology. One of the first steps that I look at, or one of the first procedures that I do when I want to determine whether something is history or not, is I study the names of the major characters involved in the story. When the names of the major characters involved in the story just so happens to correlate with the major theme of the story, this is the first sign that this is a myth. Because no matter where you go in the world, the name of the leading characters are important for the story. And the story is built off of the names of the characters. And so this is how we know that Noah, is mythological, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and other individuals, in the text. There's a process by which you have to, do this. If you're in your culture, these things already. And so, but
right.
they have adopted something and they're trying to interpret it 2,000 some odd years later and trying to make it their own. And so because they're so cut off from the original culture that developed this text, then you have these different interpretations in the way that you find in the Hebrew Israelite camps. That's why if I was going to one of the things that I was about to bring out before they cut me off was that we don't have to worry about that necessarily in the Kemetic community, because we have living communities who have not been cut off from their ancestry who lived in Kemet. And so one of the ones that I wanted to bring out was the collagen folks. I had the books in hand ready, to introduce the scholarship to the general public. But that, because of the time constraints, that didn't happen. But because this would have, like I said, it would have killed two birds with one stone, because it would have killed that noise about we got communities in Israel, and all this other kind of stuff. But these are African Americans who went over there, adopted the culture, and just lives there. But what they can't say is that we got a group of people who have never been disrupted from their culture, who still speak the language, who still wear traditional dress, who still have traditional jewelry and rituals and customs and all of this, that can answer questions about ancient concepts. They can't say that, and they were talking about, where's these morals and where's these people, in Africa. I wanted to yell, it's inappropriate, but I know at least two people in there that are in African priesthoods that were sitting there at the debate there, who've been initiated in different priesthood systems that are connected to ones in ancient Egypt. I know them. I've studied under them. 2 of them were there, you know, but that's not information we divulge. But it's because they're so disconnected that their scholarship for the most part is disconnected, and so that's why I call them Hamites, because the word Ham in ancient Egyptian means those who are ignorant, and specifically those who are ignorant of Egypt. And so that's my particular term for them. But anybody else got something to say? I've been talking too long.
Hey, I wanted to dang, I forgot what I was going to say.
I could get in right there until you remember about that term you just left off on Hamites or whatever. That's actually how the people who didn't know where Taneta was on Hatshepsut's stela were referenced. They said Kim, but you might think him or the, you know what I'm saying, when they were saying the Murph terraces where people do not know. But in the do not know, I think they use that term. It's just something I add while Jahu was getting it together.
There was another text where there was another text that says something to the nature of, they was talking about the quote unquote Asiatics, and they use that term again for those who don't know Ra. And so, you know, when I need to do some more research and see where all of these terms and just collect them in one document. But you get the general sense that, you know, this term is just almost like the word Chesed. Is, you know, Chesed is in another kind of context, but, you know, for those who are just really ignorant of who we are and how we operate, you know, they're the ones who's causing, you know, a lot of strife and trouble, you know, in our collective community. And I see the same thing with the Hebrew Israelites. They're throwing all of these charges, misrepresenting data because they don't want to know the ancient Egyptians. They don't want to know Africa. And because they don't know Africa, we get these elementary charges, these elementary claims that are easily refuted by anyone who actually studies the text.
And then they make the claim, they give the illusion that they know Egypt up and down with the verse in the Bible that says Abraham shared knowledge with the Egyptians or something like that. I don't like that either.
You know, what I was going to say was kind of with what you were saying, the difference between a myth, which is how our ancient ancestors, you know, documented different stories, but they knew the realities behind the symbolisms, the metaphors, and so on and so forth. But how you tell the difference, like how you said, if you take Dr. Martin Luther King, and you know, years from now, people write about it, and you analyze his name, Martin Luther King, his name will not be connected to the events that surrounded him, as far as meaning and stuff like that. Whereas in the Bible or in just ancient methods of documenting these myths, the name actually plays, the meanings of the names actually plays the roles in the actual myths and stories themselves. So I was trying to highlight that, the difference where you could say, okay, Martin Luther King is an actual historical sentient human being, whereas a person, you know, something like Noah, you know, the word Noah means to rest or to come to a rest. So you can tell that the story is built around him. You know.
Well, you know what?
Can I ask a question real quick? Where did you get? Is that just simple etymological text?
Hold on.
Or a study? I mean.
Hold on. We're gonna let Jonathan get in, and then we'll get to your question. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was going to add just real quick to that and to kind of address what you were saying too, my brother Jordan. I think that's your name. It works the exact same way in Metal Netra I found. And we can throw out a few stories right now and get to the bottom of whether they're myth or fiction or reality by looking at them at the name of the characters in them. If we go to, what is the story of the shipwrecked sailor? And he's supposed to so-called be... He goes and does something, gets lost on this island or whatever, and talks to, I think he talks to a snake or something. Well, anyway, he talks to something. Yeah, well, his name is something like Shimshu Akir or Akir Shimsu, which would actually be something like an excellent follower. But actually in the story, he's the exact opposite, if you see what I mean. He's like, he has bad directions and he loses his way. And so we can clearly tell he wasn't really named that in real life, so it's somewhat of a fiction. I seen another dialogue earlier today about Ipu-Ur. It works exactly the same way with the abominations of Ipu Ur. If we look into the etymology of Ipu, or what Ipu meant, it was the great an account or a testimony. And then we know means great. And so now we got some people thousands of years who don't know how to decode the names like that, who like running around like, look, we found the great account of the plagues. And we can clearly look at the name like, hey, if this dude's name was the great account, this probably wasn't really the great. I don't think that he was named the great account, witnessed the great account, and all the things that would take the text to survive to us as the great account. It's just a fiction, you know what I'm saying? That's all I want to add.
That's the exact same thing with like with Adam and Eve. Not Adam and Eve. Well, I mean Adam and Eve, yes, but more specifically Cain and Abel. And because the word for Cain has to deal with iron working and urbanization, and the word Abel is the word for a pastoralist, a migratory type person, the one who tends sheep, a pastoralist. And so when you see the conflict between these two, you know for a fact that has nothing to do with, two actual brothers, having a fight and one killed the other. It's talking about two conceptualizations, two different modes of production that, are in conflict with each other. And this is how they creatively chose to tell this story, which may, have led to their own personal conflicts with other groups, who were urbanized, which is why throughout the book, you have anything that is dealing with anything that the farmers, were associated with. The Hebrews were the exact opposite. So even to the point that the Hebrew God tells them, that they can't eat figs. Why can't they eat figs? Because figs were a sacred, fruit for the ancient Egyptians. That's it. There's nothing wrong with figs. It's just that because the ancient Egyptians like figs, we can't like figs either, because they just had a personal beef. But this is all told, in a creative way, and the story, the names of the major characters let you know exactly, that this is a mythological thing. But we interrupted Jordan earlier. If you remember your statement of question.
Yeah. It's because y'all was elaborating exactly on what I wanted to ask. Basically, y'all answered to question one, that it is just etymological study. I wanted to know what some of y'all sources for some of the name etymology or the term etymology, because I use some online etymology dictionaries, but they starting to get whacked.
Mm-hmm. Well, the online etymological dictionary is very limited, and and primarily for English, and you have a few words that are maybe some loan words, into English, but the etymological online dictionary is mainly for English. And so when it comes to Hebrew, you would have to, do one of two things, or maybe both. Either get a Semitic etymological dictionary, comparative etymological dictionary, or you would have to get some kinds of text that does comparative historical linguistics on, for instance, Semitic languages. And so it is through comparing the languages that you get a deeper sense of what the words mean and how they're applied. Okay. And so you don't want to do single language, what we call single language etymolizing, because you can get into what we call folk etymology. And so, folk etymology is based on the premise that every word.
Language is like one language to the other.
Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
When you're doing single language etymolizing, the folk etymology arises from the notion that every word that is in our language has to have a recognizable etymology. And that is not the case. Certain words, certain concepts are what we call fossilized. And in order to really get a sense of, as a scientist of language, that's what we call a linguist. Mm-hmm. They have to be able to look at related languages to see how the words really break down and to see the range of the semantics or the meanings of the term. So this is how we get to the bottom of words, if they're, especially if they're unclear, especially when it comes to names, in people's cultures. because oftentimes it's kind of hard when you don't speak the language, because when you speak the language, the meanings of the names are easy to recognize. Because in the ancient times, the people's names were just everyday words in the language. It's not like how we have in English, to where you have a proper name, but you may not know the meaning of it. If I say David, you don't know what David means. I say Christopher, well, if you know what Christ means. But, if I say Sarah or Dorothy, these aren't names if it wasn't a name that we would use that word just normally in a regular sentence. So you would have to go through a different process to figure out what that name is, because we don't use these words on a regular basis. So this is some of the things you have to consider when we're breaking down these names in Hebrew, for instance. And sometimes you can just go to the Strong Concordance. It'll tell you what the names means. But let me say this, sometimes even the biblical texts and things can have folk etymology. And so you can't always simply rely on the Bible to define the names. For example, the word Babylon. The word Babylon in the biblical text is argued that it comes from a word Babel, and they created this whole mythology about the quote-unquote Babylonians or Iraqis building a tower to heaven, and this was offensive to God, and he tore it down and decided to confound the languages. And so this is their reason. But the word is not a Hebrew word in terms of the word Babylon. The word Babylon really comes from, when you look at it in the Hebrew, it's Bab Ilu. And Ba'ab Ilu means the gates of God. Ilu is the same word as like Allah amongst the Arabs, or El in amongst the Canaanites or the Hebrew. So you say Ba'ab Ilu. It means the gates of God. And so the reason why they was called the gates of God is because they would have these painted or carved, or metallic, figurines on the gates at the beginning of the villages, or the large communities, the cities, the towns, or whatnot. So like if you've ever seen like a Dogon door, if you ever look at the Dogon's door, they have all these sacred images. That would be Bab Ilu, because they're all dealing with something spiritual. Those would be the gates of God. But because they didn't speak the quote-unquote Babylonian language, they had, remember, folk etymology arises from the notion that every word in our language, or every phrase in our language, has to have an etymology, that is understandable to us. So the closest thing that came in the Hebrew language was Babel, and so they created a whole myth around that. And so, as linguists, you have to go beyond that, because we know that the people weren't linguists.
Hey, let me
go ahead, brother. Huh?
Can I bring Yasharella in real quick? Can I bring Yasharella in?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Yasharella. What's good on, man? You on speakerphone, brother. Go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah, I asked them what did, and I think we got a general consensus from most of the mathematical scholars and brothers that read mathematics. One of the misnomers and misunderstandings on concept is that it means peace. And one of what's coming out now, most people understand that it doesn't mean peace, actually means sacrifice. Do any brothers agree with what I'm saying? Because I do have some information on it that I'm trying to bring out, but I had to do it briefly because of the time, and I didn't go into the papers.
Let me ask you. Can I answer that question for my brother?
Handle that, brother.
You gotta press something so that it won't be echoing into the mic. I think you gotta mute yourself.
I'm gonna mute him now.
I'm gonna mute.
All right. Yeah. Well, brother Nazi, how you doing? Peace. I wrote 2 articles on that. I know we just had a debate, so I thought you would have read them by now. They are called, one of them is called, they're called Hotep, how the difference between Coptic Hotep and the term in Coptic and the term in Medu Neter, how they vary. You'll find them on rapgod.wordpress. And on the second one, It's titled in a similar way, part 2. But what we'll come to find out is that offerings is possibly a better interpretation to what a more honest interpretation of what you're trying to allude to. If you've called it the cannibal hymn, but yet Hotep wasn't the term used for your so-called sacrifices in that text, and I made it public today so everybody can see it. So at least once we start to scrutinize these terms in the primary language, we start to be able to develop some form of consistency in our argument. Like we would not be able to present a term where the term sacrifice is actually used, but is yet not the term that we are saying means sacrifice. You see what I'm saying? And so I know a few other brothers got stuff to add to that.
I wanted to say that the term Hotep is the term Hotep, it also means to satisfy.
Hey, Wooja,
Yeah.
hold on for a minute.
All right.
Let them go real quick. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry about that.
All right, then you next. Go ahead.
What I'm saying, but I don't know how you correlate what I said in the cannabis hymn. I didn't use the word Hotep in the cannabis hymn. It was actually in Wallace Fresh book that he used the word Hotep pit inside of it, and in that book he talks about how it does mean offering. He uses offering and sacrifice, and he uses it in the morning offering when he talks about the tree of life. So when I use that, there is a correlation between offerings and sacrifices. So if you, it sounds like you're agreeing with what I'm saying in some points, but you're showing that it may not mean that in all references, and I'm not knocking that. But the truth be told, when you say Hotep, it's more so a presentation to the gods, or offering that you bring to the gods, and that's what I was showing during the debate. And that's all, brothers.
No, sir, that's incorrect. That's incorrect.
Yeah.
It's more. You will get a better definition than listen to Dr. Rakiti Amen and her definition of the essence and the spirit of what Hotep means. It does not mean the sacrifice in that sense.
But hold on, there's
after a song.
I'm gonna let Brother Wujawu, if he doesn't answer it in the way that I think that he can answer it, I'm gonna step in, because there's a phenomenon that we have to keep in mind with the ancient Egyptian script that he's missing. But go ahead.
Well, that too. I mean, I was trying to keep it simple because as far as literature and context, the word Hotep as a verb, it means to rest or to satisfy, and it can mean to appease something. And usually what happens is you have formulas that are written all throughout Kemet called Hotep Dinasut, which is the offering that a king gives, and these offerings are given to appease or to make at rest, and the word peace and to rest become synonymous in our vernacular today. But an offering is given in order to satisfy something. So this is where you get your so-called sacrifice or offering connotation or denotation of the word Hotep. That's in there, and then also you have paronymy going on.
Same thing that I'm saying. You just
no, it's not a sacrifice. I got the checkmate piece on my screen. If you can't see my screen now, but I got the checkmate piece up.
I'm here in peace, man. I'm here in peace. I'm not here to argue. What I'm saying is, I was just talking to Art, and Art clicked me into the show, and I'm getting the same answer, the same thing. One of the things, if you look at the word Hotep or Hotep, in Hebrew, it means to bind or to offer or to sacrifice. So in the same connotation, when you look at Wallace Budge and all of these other people that translated, they use predominantly Hebrew to translate it. So I understand where you were saying the same exact thing that I just came on the show and said. You're just saying it in a different way to make yourself seem intelligent, and that's why
please, I have to.
He said the same thing Jonathan. He said the same thing Jonathan said, and then there's going to be another brother that's going to give a different definition, but it's basically going to say the same thing. So I just wanted to bring that in there and give clarity to what I said, and it's actually accurate in some aspects. So thank you, brother.
Okay. Let me bring a little bit of truth to the light. If we mute out the echo for a second. Actually, D.A. Wallace Budge did not rely on the Hebrew. He relied on the Coptic. It's in my work, and it's all in that article I gave you. He referenced Walter Crumb's use of the term, which is Hutep. And this is why now you're starting to step out on the ledge. I said I wrote these articles 2 years ago. Just simply pull them up while you're arguing them. Everything I'm saying is in them. And what they came to, and this is where they made the error. Walter Crumb analysis was inadequate because all he sourced in his dictionary for the term Hotep was the Coptic Bible. He used how would I know this off the top of the head? He used 5 sources from the Coptic Bible to substantiate what Hotep mean, and furthermore, he never came to the conclusion in his dissertation that it meant anything other than reconciliation, the sun setting, offerings, but he did not include peace. But your definition of sacrifice is completely excluded. Now, lastly, I just want to add, my brother, for that text, while I referenced it earlier, what my point was, the term sacrifice, as used by Europeans sometimes, as in the translation of the text which you put forward, was actually on the screen. That you put up on the screen. It says sacrifice in your language. I mean, but you put English. But behind that was a term Aut. It was not Aut. It was not Hotep. And if we see right here, it is even defined in the German dictionary as gifts and offerings. If we can go further to the left, and then I'll pass the floor, we'll see right around the line, the exact line you quoted at the bait. Indeed, Shemsu cuts them up for Unis and cooks him for offerings on his cooking stones. Now let's go look at that term. It is not Hotep. So this is not your sacrificial offerings that you're talking about.
Hold on. Brother Anki, you put feedback when you come in, so mute your mic real quick. All right, continue.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I should have just stayed at 399C, where it says, Unis is the Lord of offerings who not at the court, who prepares himself a meal. In the text, it says this sacrificial meal, so I looked that up, and I was like, what's this word for sacrifice? In my own analysis. And I come to find out it goes right back to gifts or offerings. So that's, again, a forecast on, that's interpolation, basically. And I'll let somebody else get in.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we have to remember is, again, that there is no one meaning to to a lot of these ancient Egyptian words. They're actually these totally separate different words that just have the same consonant clusters together. And so I actually wrote an article on the word Hotep in my book Illusion, and I list all of the meanings of the variations of this term. And so you have various different ones. It says someone being devoted to, the name of the blessed dead. So the ancestors are named Hotep. It's a title for your mic is providing feedback.
That can't be mine, bro.
It is yours. Every time I unmute yours, it stops. Okay. So now here we go again. So in my book Illusion, it has it's a part of it's an incense. It's part of a word for wild catch. It's a word for bread. It's a word for satisfy. When Set is in front of it, it's a resting place, a food box, a basket, an excrement. When it's a Hetep word, it's an excrement. Hetepit, a lady of Uraeus. Hotepiu, peaceable. And this is in the Waterbush Book 3, page 194. So it has to have some level of meaning of peace in it. If we have, with the I and the W behind it, it means peaceable. Hatepi, gracious, merciful of God. Hatepi, furniture. Hatepi, priest. Hateptiu, bring sacrifice, in. Hatepet, a federation of vegetables. Hatepet, peace. And again, this is the definition in the Waterbush Book 3, page 194. And so anybody saying that Hotep doesn't mean peace, that's not what the dictionary is saying. And so again, we have Hotepu, good weather. You have Hetep, blood. Hetep, grace. Hetep, basket. Hetep, food. Hetep, downfall, and of course, setting of the sun, as we mentioned earlier. I mentioned incense. Hetep means incense. Again, the name of the blessed dead, even the word God is Hetep. You know, Hetep is also a word for evil plot. Obviously, these are not the same word. You have to remember that the ancient Egyptians did not write out their vowels. So what we're looking at are just consonant clusters. And so the word Hotep, or the consonant cluster of HTP is various different words that have different meanings and different etymologies. And so you have Hetep in terms in relationship to sacrifice, but you also have Hetep related to satisfied, pacified, evil plot, and everything else that I mentioned, earlier. And so, this is something that you would know if you study the language, and not to treat every single instance of a consonant cluster as having the same word or meaning. This is what I mean by folk etymology. Trying to cluster up words that look alike and trying to give it a derived meaning. Now, there's a text that I bring to the debate, that even talks about this word sacrifice in the Semitic, which is chetepu. And I'm reading from the book Ki Baruch Hu. Oh, snap. I'm dropping stuff over here. I forgot what chapter it is, but you can read, even their commentary and where this stuff comes from. But, ultimately the word for sacrifice and things come from a word meaning to cut. It's totally different from Hotep, peace. But anyone saying that Hotep doesn't mean peace, I'll look in the Waterbush dictionary and say something contrary. And we can find, in the Waterbush, in the Egyptian dictionaries for the greater context to really back it up as well. So I don't know where, and that's was something I wanted to address at the debate as well, because I don't know where he got that from. But I've written an article on it, and I have the primary citations that you can find that term with its many definitions. And so anybody else has the floor.
I just wanted to say, even once people look in the dictionaries, then you look at the actual usage in different contexts. And the problem I had with what the brother was saying was that we're giving these definitions to seem like we know something or that or whatever. And from what I've seen, the brother, if that's the same brother, Nasi Yashuel,
correct.
He was saying, I've seen him say somewhere, either on Facebook or a video, where he was saying that we greet each other with sacrifice or offerings, like when we say Hotep to each other, and that's just not the case. Because when we say ETM Hotep, we're actually saying people to come or welcome in peace, but not peace, because you got to deal with semantics and word substitution. When we say ETM Hotep, we're saying come satisfied or come calmly. Calmly come into my presence. Or we say Shemem Hotep, like I'm wishing you farewell, and I hope that you have had a satisfactory dealings with me, so I'm bearing farewell to you. That's the connotation behind these greetings or departures and so on and so forth. So if anybody say that doesn't mean peace, or then we got to define what does peace mean. And peace can mean to be still. When a lake or a body of water is at peace or rest, it's still. It's no movement. So and we can see how the paronymy or how these words can easily be bunched together, because to satisfy someone, you feed them. And what do you feed them? You feed them a nice meal. So offerings can become part of this play, this play on things. So it just comes from ignorance of the culture and actual literature that exists, that where you can actually find the words being used and how they're being used. So that's it.
Yeah, I'm looking at some more definitions here. It's one is to dwell, and one is to set. Again, when you're dwelling or sitting in a spot, you're at rest.
Yep, you're still.
That's what fundamentally what peace is. It's just at rest. I'm sitting here. There's another meaning to fall out in terms of hair. So to go bald is the Hetep. Again, because we don't see the vowels, it looks like it's the same word, but it's not the same word. If we was to do any kind of comparative study, we would see that these are different words. And so, it's just like his other commentary in the debate where he said that Meta Nature wasn't a phrase used together.
That's
And
what that's why I wanted the clip of the. That's why I was asking for the clip because these things need to be addressed. We owe it to the people to really address these points. So, I'm ready for that.
I address it on Sonetta's couch, and show them, where you can go in a particular online dictionary that would show you what papyri or stele or whatnot you can find the phrase, and it gives you the transliteration of the sentence in which it is in, and so you have no excuse, and just in that one online search tool, we found not only one but 31 attestations of meta netra together as a phrase. So I'm just curious, like where is he getting this information from? But go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh no, I agree exactly with what you said. Those are the adequate tools to do such an analysis. But like I said, by the time I got my first time to speak, I looked at the time and it was at 15 minutes and ticking. And so I'm like, okay, what's gonna be the best proper use of this 15 minutes. I wish sometimes I thought about addressing that incest first, but again, people saying stuff like, yo, they're eating people and they didn't build the pyramids. I'm not really gonna address all that foolery. Or the metal netter ain't even the metal netter, because they could just filibuster my opportunity to present by throwing out so many pseudo claims. I try to address all of them. So I just thought it would be more effective to get at their biggest claim that they've had for over the past year and try to dismantle that one.
And, I just want to say something real quick to that. I think that was one of the highlights, one of the biggest highlights of the event between as far as emotion. And I wasn't there, so I can imagine what y'all felt as far as the crowd's reaction and stuff when you broke down the arit and the spinal column and how it comes up, and then when you finally showed the last slide where the serpent came out of the forehead and how that was the last number. I mean, I know that you were charged up. I know that the crowd was like, oh snap, and the same thing with Polite when he showed the brother saying that, hey, Polite has not been to Egypt and did any field work, and then bam, he hit some hard. I could tell that as far as emotional or as far as the crowd energy, I guarantee you that those, even though I wasn't there, I bet you those two parts were the most heightened, emotionally heightened parts of the event.
Absolutely. I can tell you that from sitting at the house off the live stream, that was one of the two key parts. I had particularly about Jonathan's presentation. It was how he came out the gate, just MC style, and told them that the word Manchu wasn't even on the Stella. I was like, oh gosh, this is what they claim been sitting on for forever. And so to see that it's not even there, it was amazing.
Yeah, alright, yeah, that, and then the determinatives, and I thought, so Imhotep, I thought during your presentation, I thought you were gonna start off on the determinatives or something. Yeah.
I was gonna get Brother Divine on the determinatives right there, but again I was cut off. Each one of us had, as Brother Uncle was saying, each one of us had a presentation unto ourselves, ready for the debate, and so we wanted to make sure that we covered all bases. But Brother Unc, if you're listening, you can unmute your mic and get in what you was about to get in.
Hey, but real quick, I saw, because I know Devon you brought Devon up. I know he was talking about that Patterns of Evidence documentary. Now,
yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but he was trying to say it proves Exodus. I seen some of that, man. And you know what they try to say proved Exodus?
What?
They try to say that when Ramses II had the Battle of Kadesh with the Hittites, and he came back saying that he won. But then they were saying that they found something to say that they had made a peace treaty. They said that because he did that, that would prove that he wouldn't write down the Exodus story. So that's why it wouldn't be in the literature. I was like, what? That was crazy that they would even say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's another documentary that I was watching, at least an excerpt of it, which was raising some other critical questions that was totally against the idea that the Exodus could have happened. And one of the points that was brought out, and I'm trying to find it. Somebody posted it on Facebook. I thought I saved it, with the new save feature, but I didn't. And so I'm trying to find a way to search and find it. But when I do, I'll repost it.
Was
But
it Ramses, Wrath of God or Wrath of Man?
I don't think so. This was strictly dealing with the Exodus itself. And so they was asking it from the standpoint of the Egyptologist. So they had an Egyptologist speaking at this point. And there were several points being made, but one of them was that, one of the reasons why we don't believe that the Exodus happened is because the way that they talked about the Exodus, it would had to have been like 1 to 2 million people to leave ancient Egypt at once. What nobody seems to be thinking about is what would the draining of 2 million people do to the economy of ancient Egypt at this particular time. And if you would have taken all of the workforce, out of a country, their economy would collapse.
Yeah.
And so at this time, none of this happened. As a matter of fact, at the proposed times, it's thriving. There's no evidence of a mass of 2 million people just suddenly vanishing, off the radar or whatnot, in the historical and archaeological record. And so, when you're thinking along these lines, it's like, yeah, because I'm thinking about, for instance, when Africa, when all the Africans were, not all, but when a good number of the Africans were taken as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust, it had very far-reaching damaging effects on the economies of those areas, and so you're talking about around 1 to 2 million people at once, leaving, ancient Egypt. It's not like in modern times, where we have cities full of, like 2, to 10 million people at one time. That's really, for the most part, the vast majority of the population of all of Egypt at one time. And so to take that many people out at one time, and then there's no camp, there's no camps, there's no, think about think about it like this. How do you feed, how do you clothe, how do you find water and things for that many people at once leaving a country, traveling all at once to, to the Levant and things of this nature?
Yahweh.
Of course, that's the Hebrew Israelite response. Well, Yahweh fed us with manna from heaven and all this other kind of stuff.
Hey, but too, Asar, the Muslims, they try to use Moses' story too, with that Exodus too, because I had to bash this Muslim brother on that point with the Quran, because if you read Surah 28, I think it's Ayat 8, it talks about Pharaoh, Moses, and Hamam, Hamam, all in the same ayat. Now, if you look up Hamam, he was supposed to be a general to Xerxes the First. Now, we know Xerxes the First was supposed to be around 466 BC. So I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know too much of the particulars of that, but, to the extent, see, this is why this is why I primarily like to deal with the Old Testament. Because when you start knocking down the major pillars of the Old Testament, you knock out Christianity and you knock out certain aspects of Islam. Now, Islam, to its credit, certain aspects of it, the majority of it, is its own tradition. But it has included a lot of the mythology of the quote-unquote Jewish tradition or the Israelite tradition. And so it makes certain of their claims faulty, especially when when you're able to falsify certain things in the biblical tradition. For example, if you can't demonstrate that Adam and Eve are real people and that this stuff happened in real life, which we know for a fact it is myth, then you can't argue, for example, that there's a thing called original sin. Because original sin allegedly came through Adam and Eve. If Adam and Eve didn't exist, then there couldn't have been any original sin. And if there's no original sin, then there couldn't be any Jesus the Christ to come and die for your original sin. Because the people in original sin don't exist. And so if if the sin don't exist, if Jesus doesn't exist in terms of him coming to die for your sins or whatnot, then their whole framework in terms of the judgment, doesn't exist either. And so how can you judge people for a concept of sin that doesn't exist? And so you as an issue of method, you deal with the beginnings, and so if there's no Cain and Abel, there's really no quote unquote and I ain't gonna say there's really no Israelites, but there's no fundamental story there. Like, matter of fact, part of the discussion of, or one of the charges against Kemet was this alleged promotion and perpetuation, quote unquote, of incest. Now, one of the charges, or one of the chargebacks that Brother Polite was, kept egging at them, is that how can you charge the Kemites with incest when this is something that is perpetuated heavily in the biblical text? But now peep this. One of the things I was going to come back with was, of course, the story of Lot. We know that the story of Lot has, the later part of the story, the two daughters get Lot drunk, and they each have a child by Lot. And so that was an incestual relationship, at least, although brief, he doesn't remember. But the children from that point on are derived from that ancestral relationship. Well, one of the daughters has a son by the name of Moab. And so, when Brother Abba is stressing that, we are the Moabites, well, it comes out of that ancestral relationship. So one of the daughters gives birth to Moab. Moab gives birth to Ruth. Ruth is the great grandmother of David, and it's from the line of David that Jesus comes from. So their primary patriarch, comes out of this ancestral relationship. But them not really thinking about what it is that they're charging. They're trying to charge, Kemet with incest, misunderstanding the nature of the brother and sister concept and those type of relationships. And so it's like, let's just assume that there was incest, in ancient Egypt. We have a situation here where it's now the kettle trying to call the pot black, or however the phrase goes, and in many respects in the hood, you would call this snitching, and so snitching is when, you do a crime, and then when you get caught, you want to say that the other person did the crime too. That's what snitching is. And so, this is what the situation is when it comes to the Hebrews on this incest question, even though they totally misrepresent, the concept of that was found in ancient Egypt. And that was going to be touched on as well if I didn't get cut off. But Brother Unc, are you still there?
Brother, I also sent you a link of one of my saved links that was dealing with the Exodus. I don't know if that's the one you're looking for, but I did. I sent one to you on Facebook. So.
All right. Well, if Brother Unc ain't coming back in, then anybody else has the floor. If y'all want to touch on something, otherwise I'll ask a general question, to the panel.
I think a question might be pretty all right.
All right. Well, now that it is all said and done, everybody keeps talking about we need to unify now. But the question now comes, is it even possible to unify, or should it even be an objective to unify with individuals who have a disdain for you and your culture? Is unity at this point or any point in the near future possible with those who have dissenting views of you and your culture and your ideology and things of that nature? All right, Brother Jordan.
Yeah, well, what I would say on that, so far as is it possible to unify with those who don't have a value for the culture, I'm going to just go ahead and say that's a no and a no. Why I say that? One, somebody that's not, appreciating your culture, it's going to be ideological issues. It's going to be discrepancies about what the true history is, what definitions of language are, and then that's going to all lead down to, because see, like even us, you know what I'm saying? Us trying to link up with quote unquote Christians, you know what I'm saying? The in the conscious community, a lot of Christians are looked at as passive people. You know what I'm saying? With that passive aggression, that's something we done grown past. And so unifying with them, we wouldn't be on the same mission. You understand what I'm saying? So to unify with people that don't have an appreciation for your culture or are steadily trying to vilify a culture, and then to unify with those same people, I don't think it can happen. It's nice. It's nice, you know what I'm saying, to think that all melanated people could unify, but I don't think it would be. I think we really need to shoot more so instead of, like skinned, we need to go for the like-minded. Because if we ain't like-minded, we can't unify in the first place.
My take on that is yes and a no. And I only say yes because I do feel that any unification I think that would take place would be temporary. Because of the fundamental differences. Because what happens is it's just like relationships. When you meet someone, of the opposite sex, at first it's all rosy and peachy, but then when you get down to the fundamental basic values that what your views are of this and that is, if they differ, then the relationship doesn't work. It'll become a toxic relationship. So, to unify with anybody, because we do have something in common, we're all black, and we may have a common issues. I think we can unify on those, and that will be short term. So I think it will be just a temporary situation of unification. But in the long terms, the answer is definitely no, because anytime you unify with people, there has to be a synchrony with the fundamental basics of the culture and the worldview, because your culture defines the way you approach problems.
If they're gonna keep you in both positions.
That's different. And there's always going to be some conflict later down the line. So I would say yes on certain issues, but no in the long run. It'll end up being toxic.
Brother Ujawo, I gotta honestly say I as well agree with your short term perspective, your short term argument. That actually is true. So far as certain issues, yeah, that's actually right.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that no, it's because you got to understand the goals of the Abrahamic traditions for the most part, and they're really proselytizing, and they really have a world order agenda, and so the Israelites, in their text, I know from when I was in ICUPK, the belief is that Christ and the angels are going to come and wage war on humanity, and the select of the Israelites are going to rule over the earth with Christ as the head. And so for them, they imagine the world under the dominance of the Hebrew Israelites and the doctrine, of it. Same thing for the Muslims. And we got to think about it like this. What would life be like as somebody who has a different philosophic, spiritual, and cultural orientation under the dominance of these other groups? And so you have, for instance, in the, hadiths and things of that nature, talking about how if, in terms of the obligations, if you meet someone who is of the opposite, religion or cultural spectrum, that you are supposed to offer them the opportunity to adopt Islam. If they don't adopt Islam, you give them an opportunity to pay the tax, the jizya, whatever. If they don't want to pay the tax, then this justifies jihad, against them. But you have to give them the opportunity to convert. And so, we don't want to convert. If we don't want to pay the tax, then, we are to expect, war waged on us because we think differently. And so, in the long run, it's not going to be good if they are, the dominant culture. And so for me, it's about, you know, gathering the individuals of like minds to gain enough power to be able to repel, such negative forces, but to create a society that is understanding and tolerant of people's views, people's cultures, and things of that nature, where people can thrive and not be punished for being the children of their parents. And so, if I can find those individuals I would choose to unite with. But any other individuals who have this world dominance agenda that, has it in their mind that we should be under, their particular paradigm, by force if need be, then I can't unify with them, because then we're replacing one set of oppressors for another. And, that's my take on it at this moment. And anybody else can chime in. I see all y'all mics are muted.
I think some of the things that make us different as far as ideology or philosophy may just be as simple as, we're a tribal people. Indigenous people in general are tribal. So, if a person does have a different philosophy or outlook, they may just be of that particular tribe. That is always something that you did bring a valid point also, though. If someone else is trying to impose their views upon you, even willing to kill you in order to come across them, then no, that's not only, nothing to unify around, that's a person that will make you an enemy. However, so it's a very fine line between us just being tribal and then us, making a sound decision to be anti whatever, and that's something that we have to take into consideration. So,
if I could
Huh?
if I could chime real quick, if I could chime in on that as well, I think the so far as with ideologies ish as well, I think the difference in Africa or in the continent of Africa, what I'm getting to is that we're not going to ever be a one perspective people. I remember Shaka saying this one time. We're not going to ever be a one perspective people, a singular perspective people. But I do think, we can realize and appreciate the fact that in all African, cultures or African theologies, the one thing that would unify us was the fact that we all understood we shared the tactic of anthropomorphization. And so with that in mind, a lot of cultures could unify. But when you have a culture that doesn't regard an aspect of anthropomorphization and just takes the mythos for actual historical fact, it then becomes hard to unify and concur on certain precepts, morals, and ideologies.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to find. This is something that I wanted to, introduce as well. I'm trying to find this book. And I can't find it immediately. I got a gang of books around me right quick, and I done spilt something on this table, which is not good because this ain't my tablecloth. But that's another issue for later. But because I want to read it directly, I could summarize it, but I think me reading it would be more effective. I'll just wait. I'm gonna find it, and whoever wants to chime in on something, you can go ahead now.
I'm just sitting back down. Hey.
Oh, I found it. Okay. Hold on one sec. Let me find the exact page. Okay. I wrote a text. Excuse me. I wrote an article in this text by Doctors R. Malaba Mpoyi and Kalamba Nsapo. And it's written, the text is primarily in French. My article is in English. But the text is called Unity and Plurality of the Truth. Essays in honor of Professor Dr. Alphonse Ngindu Mushete, Volume 1. It came out last year in 2014. So my article is titled Ma'at's Origins in Family. Family as the Foundation of African Theology. And there's a an article that I cited from a book, and I'm about to find the exact page, which talks about fundamentally the undergirding conceptualization in terms of determining what is right or wrong in the African cultures. And so the article is called "The Abundant Life and the Cry of Blood" by Tim C. Lenz. And he begins with an excerpt in this article by Benazet Bujo. And I think what he states here is fundamentally at the core of African religion and philosophy. And I think it is a good grounding in order to determine, what is good or bad for us moving into the future, especially when it comes to alliances. And so now I'm about to read. So, quote, "We must start from life concepts of African clan society. Life is so central that it must be characterized as sacred. God is understood as possessing life in its fullness and as the source of life. Humans have the inalienable responsibility for protecting and prolonging the life of the community in all aspects. Morality, quite simply, the determination of whether an action promotes or diminishes life. The Tanzanian theologian Laurenti Magesa sounds a very similar note, quote, within the article itself, within the paragraph. For African religion, all principles of morality and ethics are to be sought within the context of preserving human life and its power or force. The sole purpose of existence is to seek life, to see to it that human life continues and grows to its full capacity." End quote. And if you got what it is saying, I'll read this one important line. It's talking about morality, quite simply, is the determination of whether an action promotes or diminishes life. And that's how fundamentally I look at things when it comes to whether we should unify or not. What would it mean in the final analysis to the quality of life? Does it promote or does it diminish life? Not only in terms of physical life and health, but in terms of somebody's psyche, in terms of somebody's spiritual life, in terms of their economics and things of this nature. The quality of life is what is important. And so, does our actions promote life or does it, kill life in all its aspects? And I think under, certain paradigms that certain people have created on the earth, it diminishes life. And so, whatever we do, under the foundation for which we should build off of, we should always ask the question, does this promote life? Does this add life to life? And if it doesn't, then we need to abandon it. And so when for instance, the Hebrews are arguing that, their one of their deities, Jesus the Christ, is coming to earth to kill off humanity who don't agree with them, we see that there's an agenda. This is how they see the future. They see, themselves waging war with humanity. And this is not an instance in where, life is being promoted. It's a diminishing of life. And so this final cataclysmic battle, in order to set the earth right in their eyes, it is very detrimental, and it's nothing. Actions and thoughts like this can only bring about disharmonies within the social, intellectual, and spiritual, and even in environmental fields. And so I want to get y'all comments on at least what I just said here.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's I think that's a fundamental question that needs to be asked, especially on the topic of unifying. And I think I heard you ask before, what if we allow certain people to run the show or run the ship, then would that be good? Would that add life to life? Would that be a progress? And then you have the Abrahamic traditions, the Abrahamic religions. They're very almost like cannibalistic of themselves, and you know, they're not cannibalistic, but what do you call it? When something eats up everything else, and it just keeps on eating, and that's, you know, consuming. There it is. It's a very consuming type of ideology, where it has to have converts. You have to actually convince people that they're born in sin, and that they need. You have to convince somebody who's healthy that they're sick in order for them to want your medicine. So you've created the sickness and the medicine. You're holding both ends just so you can do what you're doing. And you know, I think that's problematic. So those type of religions in the long run, they're always going to be opposed, and they're always going to be a threat to the religions or the ways of life that promotes life or adds life to life. And that's like the Cain and Abel, the myth of you know, these two different bodies of ways of life are going to be at odds with each other, you know. And ultimately, I think that check out the Giab. I think if we go back to the two cradle theory, that has some, you know, that has some parallels or correlations to it. It's just two different modes of living that are not compatible with each other, at least.
All right. Well, you know, I don't want to, you know, hold everyone up. We are actually, you know, over the time. But, you know, I guess, you know, the consensus is that, you know, even though it wasn't in a traditional debate style, you know, overall, some new information, you know, was brought out. Some people learned, you know, people enjoyed it. And, you know, I guess in the final analysis, it's a win for the community. You know, so of course the question is always, where do we go from here? But, you know, I guess, you know, someone has, you know, asked, you know, about us putting together, you know, actual live presentations of data. And, you know, we've heard this before. And so, you know, I think we've actually planned this, if Brother Ishmael Bey can confirm, you know, something like this, you know, in terms of even a tour. And so we'll see how this, you know, plays out. And, you know, of course, I would like to hear the Hebrew side, because, of course, they feel that they won, and that, you know, the Kemetic side didn't answer any of their questions. That's what I kept seeing. But another thing that, you know, was funny about the whole thing wasn't the event itself, but all of the memes that people were creating right after the event. Like someone should gather all the memes together and post a folder somewhere of all the memes from the debate.
Oh my goodness! I think the most popular meme is the show enough, and then the brother. I always forget his name. I swear to goodness, I literally fell out because I was watching the debate. And you know, you're watching the debate for the information, you just listening to what people are saying, but you notice the different, you know, how people look. But when I saw that meme, oh my goodness, I fell out. I really, because oh my goodness. I mean, you know, I don't, you know, I don't like to make fun. You know, if that's their tradition, that's their traditional clothing and everything like that. But I mean, even he has to laugh. I mean, seriously, because if it was me, I would have to laugh. Like, yeah, I do look like. Oh no.
I think one of the most important things of what we learned as Amin Ra Squad was that, you know, it was a time for our supporters to step up, and they did, you know, and I hope that they're proud of the way that they were represented. You know, there are things that we request very little of our support of our supporters. You know, but there's so many times where we simply say, you know, if you don't want Al Sharpton up there behind the microphone, send us and we'll represent you. We'll have no problem, you know, Bogart and whoever, or we have allies like Malik Zulu Shabazz and people who will give us a microphone to represent you properly. You know, so we want to make sure that we hope that you, as the supporters, were represented, you know, by the overabundance of information of the soldiers being there live to represent you properly. you know, and to make sure that you felt comfortable, as in your dollars were being represented, you know, and that you're getting the body of knowledge and information that you invest in. You know, we don't waste your funds, we don't waste your money, we don't waste your time. We take that very carefully. We do a lot of planning behind the scenes that people don't know. We have our own certain chat rooms, we have our own avenues of conference calls that the public has no idea about. And many times, a lot of the things that you see now as far as what's on Google Chat, these are a lot of the private informations and volumes of knowledge that we used to share for years that the public never even saw. So we started to say, well, let's turn on the microphone and let's let the public see how deep we go in on one another and on this knowledge and this information. So we want to make sure that, you know, your trust is something that we value. You know, we want to make sure that we do represent you, you know, in the best of manners, and we're getting better and better in doing that. So we honor you as our supporters of with your money, with your energy, you know, and we never want to let you down.
Yeah. I want to say this before we jet. You know, I wish that we had an opportunity to really kind of focus on this. Is that, you know, we're not about romanticizing, you know, ancient Egypt or African cultures in general, and that, you know, we come at this very scholastically. And if the ancient Egyptians or the, you know, other African groups did something that we would, you know, shun in the modern times, you know, we acknowledge it. You know, they're human beings, and, you know, human beings get caught up in, you know, certain, you know, behaviors that are not mutually beneficial, you know, for all parties involved. And so, you know, it does us no good if we try to romanticize stuff. But if you're going to charge us with that, you know, you need to be specific and name names and name times, you know, because not everyone who studies ancient Egypt thinks that everything the ancient Egyptians did was right and exact. You know, one of the things that I can say is that ancient Egypt was flexible enough that it allowed itself to mature. And that's all that we can ask for a society. You know, and you know, even with the United States, they had the wherewithal to, you know, at least make the Constitution a living document. You know, because they understood that times would change, perceptions would change, and that, you know, the document that they created would not be able to, you know, it would not be fully effective the way that it could be, you know, in the future when times change, technologies and stuff change, things of that nature. So it has to be a way that the people can come and change it, not easily, but, you know, if need be, to change the documents to suit the times in which they're at. And this is what, you know, one of the strengths of ancient Kemet and just the African, you know, cultures in general, which, you know, we cannot get from the biblical text. The biblical text is forever stuck, you know, in whatever, you know, positive and or negative that it has in the text. And so because of the clauses that you cannot change or add anything to the text, you cannot take away or add anything to the text. So it's a non-living document. And, you know, but it is what it is. And so, you know, we can harp on, you know, what ancient Egyptians have done, but, you know, the way that I look at it is, what was the ideals and what institutions did they have in place to reach their ideals? What were the perspectives of others of the group? And, you know, how close to their ideals did they get? And ultimately, you know, judging, you know, from their interactions with others, you know, does it match what I just read earlier in terms of, did they promote life, you know, or did everything they do diminish life? And that's how I judge, you know, all these situations. But I'll let y'all have the last word. So if y'all can take let's say 2 minutes each, you know, and say some final departing words. I'll start with you, Brother Garfield. If you're still there.
Hey, yeah, I'm here. You could skip me. I'm just listening, man. Go ahead, guys.
All right, Brother Ish, you just want to say something else?
Sure, absolutely. Just before we go, I already thanked y'all for your support and adopting the best parts of Kemet and making the way that we function as living and breathing. We can construct our own way to do it, no different than what the Europeans have done. They took certain parts of ancient Kemet, they took certain parts of the Greek culture, which was a child of ancient Kemet and African cultures. So if you see a Senate, or if you see the way the Congress is set up, or you see how politics is set up and philosophies are set up, and then Native American cultures were all weaved into this American philosophy, the Iroquois nation, and they used it to function what they wanted to do. We can do the same thing in our own African rooted traditions and function the same way.
All right. Brother Jordan?
What I wanted to do is go ahead and confirm with Ishmael that we are proud of y'all, like 1K all day. Phenomenal. I wanted to say thank you for the experience. Even though that live stream wasn't the best, y'all's information alone made that one of the greatest experiences of my conscious journey. As well, what I wanted to say, what I wanted to add on to, I know we were saying what is there to be looked forward to. I know with you guys coming out with all these publications, I think we could be looking forward to a new Alexandrian.
All right.
Probably some new libraries around the communities from y'all guys, man. Definitely need y'all publications amongst the community and readily accessible to expand the minds of the people.
All right. Well, speaking of books, I have a book that's being released next week. Oh, excuse me, this week, actually, on Saturday. It's called "Where's the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose." I'm tracing the etymology of the word love, and I discovered that it is in fact an African word, but there's a greater context for which the word exists in the African languages, and to show us how love, the concept of love, has changed from its historical origins, and how we can reorient ourselves back to that beginning and see some changes in our lives. I know Brother Ujawu has a book coming up as well. So when it's your turn, please don't forget to mention it. But Brother Kufu, you have any parting words? Give him some time to unmute his mic if he's still there. If not, then I'll roll to Brother Unk. He probably left. He has these side conversations, all the time. You there, Brother Unk? I guess not. And so, Brother Wujabu, you have the final words.
Okay, yeah. Well, first I want to say, as far as the debate, definitely the Amara Squad, the Kemetic brothers, everybody really did represent. And I really think it's a win for the community as a whole. Even though I have my hangups about the format and everything, but at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, I definitely think people learned, and I actually see a more of a thirst that's out there, at least from the comments that people are making on Facebook and everything. So it gives the opportunity to actually dig in and feed everyone the information. So that's very, very good. As far as my book, I plan to have it out by the end within this month, and it's called A Beginner's Introduction to Meta Nature, the Ancient Egyptian Hieroglyphic System, and it will be a beginner's work for people who are just coming interested in learning Meta Nature, and also people who are maybe intermediate or advanced. They could want to brush up on some fundamentals and everything. So hopefully that'll be out. Right now it's actually up to 330 pages. It includes a full sign list. It has some exercises. It basically outlines all the fundamentals, the things that you're going to need to advance. And my goal, or what I would like to see, and hopefully work with others on is a full grammar text, and then after that, a more advanced work that will deal with a lot of technical issues with linguistics. So the overall goal is to do what the today's Jews have done with their language of Hebrew and revived it. So hopefully we can work our way to actually reviving it, the Middle Netra, as a classical African language that we can actually speak and everything. So yeah, that's that.
Alrighty, and with that, for those of y'all who are listening and have not done so already, please, like it or dislike it if you dislike the conversation. Also, subscribe, at the bottom. And as far as my book is concerned, you can visit my website at www.asarmhotep.com. Right now, it's on pre-sale. It releases again Saturday. Get it at the pre-sale price. And with that, I appreciate you taking the time of your busy schedule on this weekday to listen to us converse. And we wish you a good night, and we'll see you actually this Sunday. We'll be having a conversation with the University of Kemet Press authors who have written a slew of good books on various different topics, from art to history, on the organization of research teams, and these elders have put together a good series of work that is necessary for us to take it to the next level. And so you can find, on my Facebook page, more information about that. Of course, if you are subscribed to me, that information will be shared to you automatically. And so I look forward to y'all joining us this Sunday at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Time, with the authors and the publishers of University of Kemet Press. And so with that, I say good night, Hotep, to everyone on the panel, and let's keep the conversation going. All right, peace.